San Diego, it's time to fire it up. From the beaches to the ballparks, from the Gaslamp to North County, no one knows America's finest city like he does.
You can't just punt on a Manny Machado prime year.
He's a fourth-generation San Diegan, born and raised in the heart of this community. Passionate, opinionated, and always bringing you the real talk on your teams, your city, and everything in between.
Braden totally knows his stuff. He's ready for the next step. That guy is good.
Live and local, it's the Braden Surprenant Show.
But I think Braden's one of the up-and-coming young stars in the media game in San Diego.
Now, here's your host, Braden Surprenant.
What's up, San Diego? Friday. Happy Friday to everybody out there in America's finest city. Sun is peeking through. Hopefully not too much June gloom today. We're back on YouTube today. Fresh new graphic there, Frank. Frank did a great job with some new graphics on the YouTube page. And we got a lot of new ones here. We got a lot of great new graphics that we're going to unveil in the next week or so, but not going to do too much today. But we are going to have some coming up next week. We might have a little bit of a tease on the YouTube, so go check out the YouTube page. We got some new graphics for the show on the Braden Surprenant Show. I'm Braden Surprenant. He's Frank Marchese, getting things started on a Friday. Got a big show planned again today, as we will have multiple guests. We'll be diving into a lot of different topics, as always. Coming up at 12:30, Chris Garagiola of the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's a broadcaster. He's going to call in and give us a preview of the Snakes as the Padres get ready for a 3-game series against the Arizona Diamondbacks this weekend in Arizona. Coming up at 1:35, Drake Hills, contributing writer for Black Players for Change, is going to come in and do his weekly Soccer 101 segment. We had that off for the last couple of weeks with me being in Italy, obviously, but we'll get you some soccer as Minnesota United FC will take on San Diego FC coming up tomorrow at 5:30 on Apple TV+. We'll talk a little bit about that and the international friendly that San Diego FC had with Club America earlier this week. Whatever squad Club America threw out there the other day. Definitely not their A, probably not their B, maybe a mix of their C and their D squads. If you have multiple players repping triple digits on your jerseys, it's going to be a little bit different. We tried to get John Wilner on too, and I don't know. I mean, he was still kind of waiting, so that might be a last-minute guest to talk a little bit more about this house settlement that we're going to get into today. We've punted it throughout the entire week, but there's a lot of things that are impacting San Diego State athletics here in the last couple of weeks. One is the House versus NCAA settlement that we will talk about. It definitely puts in a lot of rules that will eliminate some of the wild west that is college athletics. And it's going to help out the Power 5 or the Power 4, I should say, probably a little bit more than everybody else. And we'll take a deeper dive in that and talk a little bit about how it affects San Diego State and how it affects their football program and how it affects their basketball program. They got a new collective that they have launched for their fun for all of their sports teams that we'll talk about. And then on top of that, we have gotten some rumblings and rumors about potential TV contract with the Pac-12 that obviously affects San Diego State, as well as who could be the last member of the Pac-12. They need one more member before they could become, a power conference. I mean, power conference. I don't know if they're a power conference. San Diego State and the Pac, whatever it is, Pac-8, Pac-9, I guess, since Gonzaga will be a basketball-only school. We'll talk about all of that. It sounds like they're looking to might be adding a school very soon. UNLV seemed to turn down the idea of being a Pac-12 school. It sounds like they might be leaning towards the state of Texas to potentially add their 8th football program. But we'll talk all about that and what the money might be in terms of a TV contract in the 11 o'clock hour. And that's going to be a lot of information for all you Aztec fans out there. Some of it's good. Some of it is not that great. But we'll talk about that in the 11 o'clock hour. I do want to talk more about Padres baseball. Obviously, we got a lot of Padres baseball topics to talk about. one that we're going to get into right now when it comes to the Padres trade deadline watch. Dennis Lin had an article yesterday or earlier this morning about it, and some interesting ways that the Padres can navigate. We're going to get to that in just a second. Mike Schultz manager report from earlier today on with Ben and Woods we'll talk about in this hour. Later on in the noon hour, again, we'll talk more about the Arizona Diamondbacks and the San Diego Padres, and we'll take a look at what might be a deeper issue for the Padres, more than just left field, more than just the catching situation. And it might have to get addressed at the trade deadline. Maybe some health can help the Padres out there as well. We'll talk about that at noon. We'll get our sports thread, try to get somebody qualified with our midday sports standoff coming up at 12:45. And we'll have a lot of different things ready to go for you coming up on the show. But I did want to mention that and get things kind of started. Let's talk about the trade deadline. Let's talk about what the Padres can do coming up at the trade deadline. Dennis Lin had an article about the Padres trade deadline watch. Jim Bowden had an article yesterday, 50 days out from the MLB trade deadline. Now, overall, looking at the trade deadline and looking at what the Padres need, I think a lot of people already understand that the Padres need to go get a left fielder. I think that's definitely a problem. Whether or not they can find a catcher will remain to be seen. But right now, with the way there's not a lot of, I wouldn't say hope, but there's a lot of question marks in whether or not the Padres are going to be able to get some of their starting pitching back, has now put into a point where you might have to be in a situation in which the Padres might have to look at the starting pitching positions in order to bolster their starting rotation. So we'll see what the Padres decide to do, but kind of laid out in that Dennis Lin article, over a 5-month stretch last year, the Padres had traded away 19 players, including 11 of their 17 top prospects, for 8 players. 4 of whom are already gone or hitting free agency this offseason: Dylan Cease, Luis Ariz. And the moves underscore A.J. Preller's aggressive win-now approach, which has left the farm system depleted and has increased pressure to contend in 2025. Now sitting at 38-29, 2 games behind the Dodgers, the Padres face another pivotal trade deadline with key questions. Left field obviously remains a glaring hole. You have potential trade targets with that. Now, in the article, Dennis Lin talks about the fact that the Padres and A.J. Preller had been talking about Jarren Duran for the last year. Now, Jarren Duran, not a big power number guy, is a left-handed hitter, which the Padres kind of need some right-handed hitters, but beggars can't be choosers. And when we've seen from A.J. Preller over the last couple of years as the general manager of the San Diego Padres, is that when he's fixated on a player, he's going to do whatever it takes to potentially acquire that player. So he's been fixated on Jarren Duran for a long time. Now, adding another lefty to the lineup is interesting. But at this point in time, with what the Padres need in left field, again, they can't necessarily be choosers if they're beggars. The other name that's been thrown out there is Luis Robert Jr. Luis Robert Jr. is interesting in the sense that you'd be trading to try to get him back up to what he was before this year. And this year, he hasn't been great. He's been okay. And maybe a new lease on life and being part of the Padres organization is a risk that the Padres are willing to take. But again, it's not like he's going to be significantly cheaper. He has a couple years of control, just like Jarren Duran does. And I'm sure the White Sox are going to hold him to a level of this is what the player he is, or like that he was, and the player that he could be. So that's the left field situation. Obviously, Michael King's return is uncertain. We have no real timetable on that due to a mysterious ailment, at least laid out in the Dennis Lin article. Yu Darvish's health is obviously fragile at age 38. He's on this trip. He's going to be making some appearances over in the Phoenix area at the Padres spring training complex. But if you're a team that's contending for 2025, you need to have those guys back. And if you don't have those guys back, that's another area that the Padres have to go out there and potentially acquire. It's still a concern. Your trade capital is relatively thin. You're the 25th best farm system in Major League Baseball, according to multiple people that rank those particular deals in farm systems. And your payroll is already over the section luxury tax. Now, that being said, it sounds like there's going to be some flexibility. And according to the Dennis Lin article, do not be surprised if the Padres go over the third threshold. They might probably have a little bit more flexibility. So despite all of those potential problems, despite all of those needs that the Padres have, the one thing that's the biggest wild card that everybody in baseball continues to talk about is A.J. Preller's track record suggesting an aggressive deadline looming as San Diego eyes October. I think the Padres do have to be aggressive. Now, it doesn't sound like the Padres are interested in trading Ethan Salas or Leo DeVries, and I don't think they should. But when you are in a win-now mode, and when I mean win-now, I mean your players that are under big contracts in the prime of their careers, you have to go after it any chance you got every single year. And right now, they're 9 games above 500. They're 2 games behind the world champion Dodgers from a year ago. And they're right there in the thick of things. But they have some holes currently that everybody knows about, left field and the catching situation. Starting pitching was not a hole relatively at the beginning of the year, but it might turn into one if you can't get these guys back healthy. And then there is even a more glaring issue that we're going to talk about at noon that stems from the offense not pulling their weight and starting pitching not going deep into games. We'll talk about that at noon. But when we come back, let's talk about the 2 names that were listed in this Dennis Lin article. Should the Padres take a risk on Luis Robert Jr. despite his poor numbers, or is Jarren Duran the better fit? We're going to talk about that when we come back, maybe throw in some other names that the Padres might go after at the trade deadline. Again, trying to help this ball club out as much as we can after an off day, getting you ready for Padres Diamondbacks later on tonight. I'm Braden Surprenant. This is the Braden Surprenant Show, just getting started on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. There you go. That's back. 10:18 on a Friday. Braden Surprenant show alongside Frank Marchese. We're back on YouTube today. I got the camera back and running. A little bit of a mishandle of a container. Got knocked the cord of the camera out of its socket. So that's fun. That was on me. Hand up. Accountability. That's on me. Not on Frank. Can't even blame technology this time.
He draws the foul.
You finally dishing out fouls? Guy's been lenient for the last couple of periods here.
Listen, I like to let the guys play, until something happens that's under our control. I'll let the boys play.
Does the fouls go over the YouTube?
They should.
And we got that one on there. That's one of my favorite sounders ever made. With Chevy Chase from Fletch.
Yep.
He draws the foul. 833-288-0973. 833-288-0973. Let's talk about Jarren Duran, Luis Robert Jr. I think, and I don't even think either of these. I don't see these guys being the two players that you're going to get. I don't think it's as simple as you're either going to get Luis Robert Jr. or you're going to get Jarren Duran. I would say right now you're probably not going to get Jarren Duran, but you never know. I mean, that's the thing. Never say never. I mean, Sports Illustrated had one today about an update from Jarren Duran on Jarren Duran. It might be from the Dennis Lynn article as I pull it up right now. But it says San Diego Padres have major update in their plans as the trade deadline approaches, although it may come at expense of an overpay. The Friars need to address the lack of depth in left field as to be as complete as possible post All-Star break. Additionally, someone who would be electric option to fix the left field situation, Jarren Duran, was once again linked to San Diego as an insider provided an interesting update. The veteran insider talked about how the president of baseball operations, AJ Preller, is a fan of the current Red Sox slugger. Finally, a Los Angeles Dodger all-star paid an incredible compliment to Padres fans, although a veteran is new to the Dodgers and Padres rivalry. He became acquainted earlier this week, blah, 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 blah. So not really too much to say on that. But Jarren Duran, this was kind of the deal that happened. This started a bubble a little bit when I was in Italy. I don't mind Jarren Duran being on the Padres. I think it'd be a good pickup for them. I just, at the same time, you're adding a left-handed bat when you need some right-handed bats. I don't think you could really, pick and choose at that particular sense, but he's got a 1.6 WAR, a 271 batting average. He has driven in 38 runs. He's got 5 home runs, which is not the greatest, but at this point, it's better than what you're getting out of a lot of your players right now. And you look at overall control of Jarren Duran, you get a couple years of control. Jarren Duran, as of right now, on the Boston Red Sox, as I can't find his, there it is, arbitration eligible until he is a free agent in 2029. Now, there is a club option in there, but I think the club option goes away if Jarren Duran is traded. Jarren Duran this year, as I mentioned, 1.6 WAR with a 271 batting average, 753 OPS, a 109 OPS plus, so just 9% better than an average baseball player in Major League Baseball. And obviously a significant upgrade to left field. Let's take a look at Luis Robert Jr. Now, Luis Robert Jr. for the Chicago White Sox. I do have to preface this. Jarren Duran is 28 years old out of Corona, California. Luis Robert Jr. is 27 years old. He's about to turn 28 in August. This season, Luis Robert Jr. has a 0 WAR. He's hitting 187. He has driven in 26 runs. And he has hit 6 home runs. He is a center fielder by trade, which could improve his defense in left field, as he is near the bottom of fielding in center, but probably could be a very, very good left fielder for the San Diego Padres. And when it comes to his contract or how many years of control you would have for Luis Robert Jr., He is. I was to try to find it on baseball on Fangraphs. For some reason, it's not. There it is. He's getting $15 million this year, and he's got a club option for $20 million next year and $20 million in 2027. Jarren Duran is getting like $3 million this year. So when you're just weighing out the two, and I don't think these are the only two. I think the Padres could make a move with Miami for the Christian High product and Stowers, or maybe Sanchez against Frank and the Padres fans will with Jesus Sanchez. I think you can make a deal with Baltimore for some rentals. But when talking about these two players in particular that are under control, both of them for the next couple of years, you take the chance on Luis Robert Jr., or you get a maybe at which has a higher potential ceiling than Jarren Duran, or you get a more consistent player in Jarren Duran, which will cost you a little bit less money. I think overall, it will probably cost you the same prospect capital. Now, here's some of the things that will just poke holes in all of this. AJ Preller apparently has been talking with the Red Sox for over a year for Jarren Duran. AJ Preller finds different ways to make some of these things happen. But if you look at what the Red Sox are looking for, is they need major league pitching. Now, they probably need more starting pitching than anything else, but the Padres do have some bullpen pieces potentially available. A bullpen is the strength, even though it might turn into a weakness here, as we talk about in the noon hour. He has multiple years of control, again, with club options, Luis Robert Jr., in comparison to Jarren Duran. And right now, even though you would think that Luis Robert Jr. would be slightly more affordable, it sounds like the White Sox are trying to sell him for what he was more than what he is. The good thing about Luis Robert Jr., though, is, again, you could view him as a rental and sell it as a rental because he's not worth $20 million a year on a club option. And so for Luis Robert Jr. being a rental and not putting up good numbers, you could probably negotiate the price down with the Chicago White Sox a little bit, or just kind of building for the future. And so you add a guy like Luis Robert Jr., by the time you acquire him, if you acquire him by the deadline, which is in 49 days, his contract or the money that is owed to him would probably only be about $8 million, or maybe slightly less than that, to account for the money that has already been paid to him this season. And then at the end of the year, if he doesn't do well, or regardless, you could just let him go, not take the club option for $20 million. So do you want to take, maybe it's a little bit more affordable for Luis Robert Jr. and you're hoping for more, or you trade a little bit more for a guy like Jarren Duran, you might overpay, but you have him under control for a couple of years, and he's probably a more consistent piece. You're not relying on hope and a prayer. It's an interesting topic of conversation. Do you want the for sure thing, or do you want the thing that could turn into a higher ceiling by taking a chance? At this point in time, I don't think the Padres are in a position to take major risks with their moves. They have to hit on these guys at the trade deadline in order to be successful. I don't mind the rolling of the dice on Luis Robert Jr. It would have to be almost like a steal of a deal in order to make that happen. Jarren Duran, on the other hand, you'd probably have to overpay, but it's more of a sure thing. If you look at other options out there, and they've been laid out, you have opportunity potentially with Baltimore. I think Baltimore becomes one of the most sought-out teams at the trade deadline if they decide to sell, if they don't think they're competing. The Arizona Diamondbacks are like that too, but unfortunately for the Padres, they're not going to be able to do that. And again, when talking about the finances, go read the Dennis Lin article. He said a couple of things that were very glaring, aside from the Luis Robert Jr. conversation and the Jarren Duran conversation, there was two things that he said. One, the Padres are going to be aggressive at the deadline. And number two is even though the Padres are close to surpassing the second threshold, it sounds like the Padres might give A.J. Preller some leniency on going over the third threshold this season. And who knows what they have to do at the end of the year. But again, a lot of money's coming off the books at the end of the season. So financially, they can make a lot of these moves potentially happen. In terms of prospect capital, that's where A.J. Preller is going to have to get very creative. Padres do have a lot of bullpen arms. They have a lot of bullpen arms. Maybe you see a situation when they potentially trade said bullpen arms. Let me ask you this question. Would you, because a lot of teams competing, right? You're looking at, we went over this on, what was this, Tuesday, Frank? When did we go over the free agent stuff? Or the left fielder stuff? Tuesday?
I think that was either Tuesday or Wednesday, yeah.
I think it was Tuesday. We didn't do it when I was at the loft. Tuesday. We were only talking about teams that were not competing, correct? Now, in order to maybe make a deal with a team that is competing, are you willing to trade Robert Suarez to a contending team that needs pitching that might have a plethora of outfielders? Now, there's not a lot of those teams out there. And the Red Sox, again, need starting pitching more than they need a closer. That is a luxury they probably can't afford. But that being said, you have a guy like Robert Suarez who can opt out at the end of the year. And with the bullpen depth that you have, you can bump everybody back to a spot in which either Adams the closer or maybe Estrada, who might be a future closer, and then you can work back on some of your bullpen pieces. I wouldn't be shocked if that might be part of the equation in trading a Robert Suarez. I don't think you sign him at the end of the year in the offseason. I think he's going to demand too much money. Somebody will pay him that money. I don't think the Padres should. I don't think that's really worked out for a lot of closers. And for a team that is trying to stay under certain thresholds year to year, because you don't want to get the extra penalty of multiple years in a row, correct? In order to do that, maybe you trade Robert Suarez. I think it's an interesting topic of conversation. Now, you could say the same thing about the starting pitching, right? But the problem now is like Michael King is on the injured list and you don't know when he's coming back. Darvish has been coming close, but he's not there yet. Dylan Cease is starting to finally turn things around. But again, if you're a team that is trying to compete for a World Series, you need as much starting pitching as possible. And we are already starting to see articles about how the Padres might need to go get a starting pitcher. So I don't think that's really part of the equation. Now, if King was healthy and you were getting all these numbers, and maybe you traded Dylan Cease at the trade deadline to get you an outfielder, a Dylan Cease for a Jarren Duran, saves you money, gets you a left fielder for the future. For the next couple of years, Cease was not going to come back on the team next year anyway, but right now you need Dylan Cease. That was kind of talked about a little bit on the roundtable yesterday. Chris Ello mentioned trade Ryan Bergert right now to try to go get an outfielder. And then Woods responded with, would you trade Dylan Cease? Long pause. No, I would not. So maybe that is probably the deal. I think Suarez makes a lot of sense, but again, you have to find a team that is looking for a closer at the deadline that is willing to give you an outfielder or maybe a designated hitter. What do you think? 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, plus what Mike Schilt had to say on the morning show. A lot of interesting topics of discussion as we continue on the Braden Surprenant show, standing as number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 10:38 on a Friday morning, getting ready for the series against the Snakes. Braden Surprenant, Frank Marchese, Braden Surprenant show every day from 10 to 2 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. We have an interesting week next week with some days off and some other things. And then after next week, we are full go for the rest of the year. We'll talk about that later on the show. A lot of interesting topics of conversation. Now, some people are saying, like, well, why would Boston trade away Jarren Duran for a rental and Cease? Now, I said before, I don't think the Padres would potentially do that because they don't have enough starting pitching as of right now, with King on the injured list and Darvish on the injured list and Musgrove not coming back anytime soon. But the only reason why I threw that out there is from the article I read yesterday from Jim Bowden that we're going to talk about at noon. Jim Bowden made it sound like, actually, we're going to talk about that at 1. My mistake. Jim Bowden had in his thing 20 things Jim Bowden is hearing and watching for on the MLB trade deadline 50 days ago. We're now 49 days out. Now, some of these you have to hold with a grain of salt, right? Because, like, the big market teams always in these articles are always buying regardless of what their situation is. And the small market teams are always, like, selling or adding on the margins. But this is what was interesting to hear. And this is why I brought this potential trade up. And I don't think the Padres would do this, or the Red Sox, but it's interesting to say the least. After subpar starts, this is from Jim Bowden's article. After subpar starts, the Braves, Red Sox, and Rangers don't appear to be postseason teams this year, but most in the industry believe they will make trades to improve their respective rosters for the rest of this season and next, rather than being typical sellers. The Braves will focus on acquiring more pitching, starting relieving. The Red Sox will try to deal one of their outfielders for starting pitching help and an upgrade at first base. The Rangers will generally look for bats if they can't get their own guys going. Now, it does say like now and the future, but if you're the Red Sox and you're looking to add because you still think you can compete this season, and if you look at the MLB standings right now, earlier this week, they were like 4.5 out of a wild card spot. They're currently 2 games under 500, the Boston Red Sox. And in the wild card, the Red Sox are 3 games out of a wild card spot. And they need starting pitching. So if they still are going to add at the deadline, why could they not acquire Cease? Maybe try to work a deal out with him as the season goes on. Maybe not. Maybe get him at the end of the year. And to upgrade your team at the deadline and go 1-for-1. I asked this hypothetical trade. I don't think it's that. I think it's kind of nuts, though. It's not. Probably you'd have to throw in a prospect. I don't necessarily know if either side would work, but if you did like, and I don't really want Aroldis Chapman on the team, but if you dealt them Robert Suarez and a Dylan Cease for Jarren Duran and Aroldis Chapman, you get a 1-for-1 on the closer, but it's the same price. It's not you're downgrading your closing. You're downgrading your closing position, even though Aroldis Chapman's had a decent year. You get Jarren Duran for a couple of seasons after this. You get your left fielder. Again, this you would never do this because of starting pitching wise. You have a lot of holes still in the starting pitching unit, so now you lose on your starting pitching. But if you're fully healthy there, you have your pitching staff is set, your bullpen has not been damaged, which is your biggest asset as of right now, and you've improved left field. You'd probably have to throw a prospect arm in, but those are creative ways to try to get some of these deals done. I wouldn't do that if I was the Padres. I probably wouldn't do that if I was the Red Sox either. But those are some of the ways that you can address. Again, the teams that need pitching help that have outfielders need starting pitching help. The Padres don't have that to give away. They don't have that to give away. But these are some of the ones that you would have to think about in terms of acquiring certain pieces without giving away DeVries or Salas, which I don't think they will do anyway. And I think you could get a left fielder without having to trade either of those particular players. I still think you're trading for Luis Robert Jr. on a prayer and hope that you could get him back to what he was. And maybe a change of scenery would do that. I still think there's other options out there. And again, all going right now, it's interesting, right? But there's a lot of things that are in play when you talk about trades right now. Everybody wants to go get a left fielder now. You never know what might come about as you wait in the market. And nobody's making drastic moves yet, except for Aaron Savali, who messed around and found out. Guy demanded a trade out of Milwaukee. Oh, that's way worse. That's sent to Chicago. Hey, buddy, you wanted a trade. Here's the south side of Chicago. That's the bad news. The good news is the Pope's your fan now. There you go. Good job, Aaron. How are the cheese curds in the south side compared to Milwaukee? That's a rough move, dude. Guy played his hand, overplayed his hand. I sent that to Frank today, and Frank said something grass, something greener, something. Yes, absolutely. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. We do want to dive into what Mike Schilt had to say. We're going to get to that in a little bit, but first, let's get out to Brandon in Carlsbad. Joins the Braden Surprenant Show. Brandon, what's going on, man?
Big B, what it is. Well, clearly, fellas, let's take a deep breath, because if you look at the standings right now, it could be better, but it could be worse. I try to always look at the bright side, but clearly we need an upgrade. I mean, if you look at our left fielders this season, they're all sub 300. So if you could fix that, it might give us a little bit of But the pitching, yes. The catching, yes. I mean, we can really scramble those eggs if we continue to just look into that rabbit hole, if you will. I just personally think, and this is my take, I'm not a baseball savant, nor am I anything close to what the pros are on analyzing. And I just think if our bats can wake up and do what we know we can do, we know we can do. I think that's the frustrating part. I generally like to call in and get everyone pepped up, but I also know, we're coming into a stretch right now that I think is going to be a great test to how our metal can hold up to what's going to be going on in this 3-game and then back to LA for the 4-game series. And if we do well, everyone that's going to cry about what we need and what we don't need and whatnot, we're all going to shut up, because that's just how baseball works. It's such an amazing chess game. And I think that Preller and the boys and Mike have something up their sleeves. We just don't know it yet. And we'll talk about this till we're blue in the face. But until then, let's go, Friar Faithful. Let's go chop the head off those snakes one day at a time. Thanks, B.
Brandon, another great call as always. Chop the head off the snake. I hate the Diamondbacks, dude. They're so obnoxious. So obnoxious. I heard Chris say that yesterday. He's like, if I was a Padres broadcaster, which I'm not, I'd have to refrain from interacting with Bob Brenly at any point in time. I agree with that. He's a bike chain guy, right? I mean, he just always has these like jabs in there all the time on the Padres. It's just ridiculous. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Let's get to the manager's report from earlier today. There's a couple of things that we did want to play from the manager's report that was on with Mike Schilt was on with Ben and Woods earlier this morning. Here's what happened earlier today on the manager's report with Mike Schilt, refreshed by EcoWater SoCal. Obviously, a big question mark is the top of the order has not been doing that great. I had some, Kevin Acee laid it out. I mean, your leadoff man is hitting under 250. I think it's like hitting like a $187 Fernando did in the last whatever amount of days, and the 2 hitters hitting like 212, which is Luis Ariz, and your cleanup hitter's not hitting that well either, and Jackson Merrill over the last couple of weeks or so. So the question becomes, you move things around, and what are the thought process on potentially moving Tatis from the leadoff spot?
The lineups, it's interesting because I think about the lineup every day.
Sure.
So it's not over the last 6 weeks. It's not anything that, there are days that are easier than others. It's clarity for me that's others. It's a wonderful topic for people to talk about.
Yes.
The good news about Toddy is, he can hit anywhere in the lineup. There's also a lot of moving parts of the lineup that, quite frankly, I don't need to discuss
Right.
that aren't public privy. It's clearly worked when it works. If he's hitting well, you want him hitting there. Still, when he's not there, he's worked some walks. He's got some bags. He's a complete threat. I can tell you, just watching the game, that there's an uncomfortability from the very moment that starting pitcher gets on the mound that has to face him. But yeah, there's a conversation that, internally takes place with me and some of the staff that we always consistently look at, including with players. So I always try to give you guys the absolute best answer I can, and that's the best I can do for you right now.
Not really a lot of that. I wouldn't move Tatis at a leadoff spot anyway. I mean, when the offense doesn't hit very well, everybody just goes like, they throw out the definition of insanity. Well, the problem with that is the definition of insanity of doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result, does not apply in a sport where all you do is fail. I mean, guys are doing the same thing over and over again. They're trying to replicate the same thing over and over again in their swing, and they can't. Every at-bat's different. So even though you're lining up the same lineup every single day, it's not like you're really doing the same thing and expecting different results. Guys need to be able to execute. When Fernando's at his best, being in a leadoff spot is the best spot for him. I will continue to say that over and over and over again. I'd like to see Merrill in the 2 spot. I've been saying that for 4 months. I'd like to see Tatis and Merrill get some speed on the bases and then go with Machado and then go with the Rise. People freak out because contact hitter is a 4. It just malfunctions people's brains because they've been so trained that the cleanup hitter has to be like Mark McGuire or some dude that's going to put the ball over the fence. It's different now. Luis Rise is scarier with people on base than he is with nobody on base. That doesn't mean he's always going to get a hit with guys on base. But you have to understand, like, baseball is not, you can't apply the definition of insanity to baseball because baseball it's just different. It's a sport built on failure. And if you're constantly tweaking things all the time, you are going to fail. I don't mind mixing the lineup in other spots, but there's certain guys that need to be playing in certain positions in the order. I mean, when you see like other sports teams do poorly, you don't have them like change their positions. When a receiver's not doing well, he doesn't move to a different position in the order, which is kind of a bad comparison. But at the same time, it's like, it's not the batting order. These guys got to just be out there. They got to go play. I'd like to see Fernando, Merrill, Manny, Arise in the top 4. Wouldn't mind seeing Sheets 5. Again, there's your lane of lefties. You got a lot of lefties in the lineup, though, so it's hard to avoid the lefty situation. But Sheets, to me, would be a 5-hitter. If you want to have Bogarts go 6, so you break up the lefties, you could do that. If Cronenworth bats 7th, I wouldn't be opposed to the, other way around. But I'd like to have Merrill in the 2nd spot. I'd like to see it. I think it'd be good. Fernando and then Merrill. You could have a Rise bat 3rd, you have Manny bat 4th. I don't really care. To me, it makes more sense for everybody that wants a Rise the bat leadoff, which I think is not the best idea. If you like him batting leadoff, if he bats 4th and the top 3 guys go down 1, 2, 3, he's leading off the 2nd inning anyway. But that's how, that's not even like a big lineup change. I don't mind Mike Schilt not changing the lineup. And you want to know why? Because about 3 or 4 years ago, they were changing the lineup all the time. And people bitched and moaned that it was like, why aren't you keeping the lineup the same? Again, the guy's got to execute. It's fun to talk about the lineup, like Mike Schilt said. But I remember, like, working here, Andy Green got ridiculed because he kept changing the lineup every single day. And these guys will never be able to hit if they don't know if they're in the exact spot every single time. That was the phone calls we got all the time with Andy Green. He doesn't let the guys bat in the same spot every week. He's got to be more consistent. Now we get a guy in Mike Schilt that basically fills up the same lineup almost every single day. And he's got to change the lineup. He's got to change the lineup. Sometimes these guys just got to go out there and play. More so than just changing or not changing the lineup. It's a fun topic of discussion. But again, if I was making the lineup, which I'm not, Fernando, Merrill, Manny, Arise, Sheets, Cronenworth, Bogarts, catcher, left field. There you go. That's what I would do. And you know what? Some days it would work, and some days it won't, because it's baseball. Guys fail 70% of the time. They go to the Hall of Fame. It's a game of failure. It's not always just changing the lineups. Want to get back to your phone calls when we come back. Wayne in San Diego, please wait on hold. Plus, we got some news from San Diego State Athletics. We'll get that to you in the next hour on the Braden Surprenant Show. 11 o'clock. Second hour of the show, leading into the lunchtime hour. Are we going to talk about fair food in the lunchtime hour? We talked about the new stuff there.
I think that was the plan. I think the fair food was the plan for today.
Yeah. Who's dealing with the traffic today? Good luck, everybody, going north of Del Mar on the 5 today. If you are not working remotely and you are working in the office and you got to go north of the 5 today, why are you still at work? Why are you still at work? First Friday of the fair is today. What's the busiest days of the fair? Like Friday?
I would have to assume it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Right?
That would be my guess, at least.
Maybe not a Sunday.
Was it?
I was trying to figure out a day for us to all go and get some content done.
They're closed on Monday and Tuesday, no? Or is it just Tuesday?
I thought Tuesday was like the half off day or something.
Oh, I just know they're closed.
They close one of the days?
I just know they close one day a week.
The Del Mar, what's it called? Driving range over there? I think they're open like Tuesday and Wednesday night or something. So maybe one of those days they're closed.
Probably, yeah.
And the other one, I guess I have the like small.
How about we stop guessing?
I guess we have the internet in front of us.
Tune into the old Google machine here.
The 4th of July is always like the worst day at the fair. It's like the most people. Here's something. My mom's going to get upset about this, but I'll throw it under the bus. Think about all the things, Frank. As you look that up, I want you to think about this. And I want people driving around to think about this. All of the locals out there, the multiple generation San Diegans, think about all of the things you know as a local you should never do on certain days because the place is going to be packed. Think about those. 4th of July beach, 4th of July fair.
The Bay downtown.
Yeah. Other holiday stuff, right, too? Like Labor Day weekend. Like, I'm not going to the beach. It's ridiculous. Memorial Day weekend. Like, think about all those things. Think about all the things of, like, days you don't go to the theme parks in Southern California. Like, you should probably not go to the theme park during the holidays, up at Disneyland. Think about all those things where you shouldn't be because you know there's going to be crowds, it's going to be packed, it's going to be stressful, all that stuff. Think about that. And just know this. My family has done all of those things because my mom is wanting to do all those things. I have been to the fair on the 4th of July. I have been to Disneyland over Memorial Day weekend. I have been to the beach on the 4th of July. I have done everything that you're not supposed to do as a local, that you know there's going to be crowds, and it's going to be hell for parking and everything like that. My family has done. So yes, the 4th of July is probably the toughest day to go to the fair. I have done that. In fact, I think I've done that more than once. I'm trying to think of other things. Opening day downtown.
Comic-Con.
I've been to Comic-Con once, but like going down to like just having like let's go downtown for the day. It's a beautiful Saturday. Comic-Con's going on. It doesn't matter. Go to the gas lamp during Comic-Con. Great idea. I've been to Huntington Beach on the 4th of July where they do the whole surfing thing and stuff. Poway Parade for Braden's birthday. No, I only go to I'll be at the Scripps Ranch 4th of July parade like I am, as is tradition. Should be a fun time. But anyway, what did you get? What did you find?
Fair is off Monday and Tuesday.
Monday and Tuesday, no fair. The whole time? Every Monday and Tuesday?
Yes, every Monday and Tuesday, no fair.
Interesting.
It's not fair.
What's the half off day? Is that Wednesday?
Think so.
The Wednesday deal?
Google machine.
I'll digress on that. What's the fair's theme this year? Don't they have like a theme every year?
You're asking me a ton of questions that I need to look up the answer to.
I didn't realize you didn't work. I thought you worked. I thought you were a carny too. I thought that was part of your deal.
Summer Pet-tacular is the gimmick this year.
Pets. Fun.
Don't sound so excited. You get to see every dog in San Diego. That's not a problem.
They're all there? Is that what the thing is?
They should be.
You get to see the little pigs run
I
around.
hope they are.
The theme is always take all your money every year. Yes, Johnny. It's probably up there. But anyway, I was trying to plan a day for the fair next week. And my buddy was like, one of them was like, well, I can do it like Sunday. I could do any day but like Sunday night. And my other friend responded with, who goes to the fair on Sunday nights? Interesting take. Can't say that I do. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Any frogs there? That's a good question. If there's horned frogs there, I'd go. They have horned frogs at the zoo. Tiny little guys.
Shoot content at the zoo.
I don't know, you have to ask permission to do that?
Back with my brethren.
Oh, the horned toads, they're like
Yep.
that big. Let's get out to the phones. Chad and Santee wants to weigh in. Chad, what's going on, man?
Hey, Braden, I have a potentially stupid question that I feel like if another baseball fan asked me, I would be able to explain pretty consistently an answer that would suffice. But I have to ask it to you myself because I'm genuinely curious about your lineup issue. I've always thought, okay, there's 3 outs in an inning and 27 outs in a game, and if you have a hole at 7, 8, 9 or 6, 7, 8, 9, why can't you just break those up? Simple, doing something like Tatis leadoff, and then putting one of your 8 or 9 guys like the catcher or something, and then following it up third with a good hitter. So you're going good hitter, bad hitter, good hitter, bad hitter, good hitter, bad hitter. And the thought on it is, well, if there's 3 outs in an inning, not 2, obviously if there's good, bad, then you're going to lose every single inning. But if there's good, bad, good, or bad, good, bad, there's the potential for something to happen, a rally or whatever, even if they are bad. Maybe it's just math and trying to think mathematically, but is there some way you could try to talk through that makes more sense from I mean, I know that getting more at bats at the top of the lineup matters, but it doesn't matter after the 3rd or 4th inning if they're in a different order that allows for good hitters to cover for the bad hitters.
The problem with that is you can't get in a rhythm, Chad. It's just going to be like hit, out, hit, out, hit, out. I mean, if you think about it from that perspective, or how about this, even worse, hit, double play. Now you're to 2 outs to start the inning. When you try to that's just kind of overcomplicating things. It's better off. You want to get your guys as many at bats at the top as possible. I saw somebody in there in the batting. They wanted like the catcher 6th. I don't want the catcher 6th at all. You want to put Martin Maldonado 6th? I'd rather have him have limited at bats. It was like Bogart's in the 9 spot, catcher at 6th, Cronenworth at 7th, left field at 8th. That sounds like an emotional lineup, dude. It's kind of emotional. It's kind of like we just hate Bogarts that much he has to bat 9th. Unless you think he could flip the lineup over. But even then, the catcher 6th, I mean, your second inning is you're gonna have Martin Maldonado come up or Elias Diaz come up multiple times. I don't know about that. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Appreciate the phone call from Chad. Okay. We look at and transition into, I don't know if I want to do that or not. Let's think about the Mike Schultz stuff that we didn't get to. Do you want to get to any of that, Frank? Is there anything that's gotta have, or the Tatis one was the only?
I mean, I would want to hear what he had to say about being human while guys are struggling.
Yeah, that's a good one. Earlier today on the manager's report, here's what happened earlier today on the manager's report with Mike Schilt. Refreshed by Ecowater SoCal. We talked about Tatis potentially moving out of the leadoff spot. Didn't sound like that was going to happen. Here is Mike Schilt talking about what it's like being human when guys are struggling.
Especially in the, micro world we live in where, they're not getting those reinforcements anywhere else other than, internally or, you mentioned the family trip, people that are going to support them. And, that's our little bubble that, does support each other and knows how hard the game is. And, insulates from, the challenge that is the game. And, specifically Jackson, yeah, absolutely. He's a really talented player. Clearly he's demonstrated it. I think it would be, irresponsible and unfair, quite honestly, to think that there wasn't going to be some regression with any player. Toddy started off in a historic flip.
Yep.
We all would love for that to happen. Jack has started off in an amazing, an amazing start. And things do kind of normalize to a certain place, to the back of the baseball card. And we ride it when it's good, and we're excited about it. We want it to continue. Of course, they do too. But we also recognize that, it's a long season, and balls are going to be hit at people, and it's just you're not going to get borderline strike calls, and it's just a game, right? And so, yeah, you completely remind Jackson that how good you are and how wonderful a player you are, and try to continue to remind them of all these things, what you do to have success. But the good ones like Jackson, they do need it. They need a human element. They need to continue to go play. And, you mentioned Manny, and, he's had a wonderful year. He's been very, very consistent. But, 4 weeks ago during the stretch, there were some questions about Manny.
Yeah.
And I said, well, see me in a week.
Yep.
And the thing that's interesting about the see me in a week part is then when he gets back to performing well, everybody just goes, yeah, he's Manny. He shouldn't be performing well.
It's true. It's true. No, you're right. It's
true.
true.
It's so true. It's
true.
so true. But that's the nature of the game in the world.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, obviously, for a lot of these players that they're not robots. They can't just go out there and do the same every day. There's a lot of things that are going on in people's lives and everything like that. And, the emotional aspect and the mental aspect of the game is just as important and difficult as the human side of a lot of things. So very interesting comments from Mike Schilt. We're going to table some Padres talk and talk a little bit about San Diego State and what the latest court hearings and everything that involves college athletics and how it affects the Aztecs. We had some big moving parts earlier in the week and of last week to discuss, and we'll do that when we come back on the Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego's number one sports station, 97 through the Fan. 11:18 on a Friday. Look at my camera set here. There we go. We got the College World Series just getting underway. Arizona, Coastal Carolina, a rematch from a couple of College World Series ago. They're about to get started in Omaha. We have the U.S. Open going on. We have Frank's watching Formula One. What are they doing? Like qualifying?
It's the first practice session.
Practice session in Canada.
And then right after that is Auburn versus who? Just missed it.
I don't know, but they won't.
Alabama Auburn, which I do not believe is.
What is that?
I don't believe that's. It's
SEC
got to be
tournament.
basketball.
No, it looks like. Oh, maybe it is.
A replay of SEC basketball.
Thanks,
Great.
ESPNU. Isn't that what the SEC network is for?
Well, you know.
Play stuff like that. They just got underway in Omaha. We also got the U.S. Open going on this weekend. Do we have an update on the U.S. Open? We'll have one when we come back.
Yes, we will have one when we come back.
All right. With college baseball on in Omaha, let's transition to what has happened in college athletics over the last week, which has gotten some kind of crazy. The House vs. NCAA settlement, finalized last Friday, marks a historic shift in college athletics, which now allows Division I schools, including those in the Power Four, and others like San Diego State, to directly compensate student athletes starting July 1st, 2025. Each school will be able to distribute up to $20.5 million annually in revenue sharing across its athletic programs. While this move is seen as an effort to bring structure to the chaotic NIL landscape, insiders expect that the race to secure top-tier talent will push total player compensation budgets to $40 to $50 million at elite programs, far exceeding the cap, which means they're going to spend the $20.5 million that they get in TV revenue and everything like that, and add it to their NIL collective that they already get. This expansion into semi-professionalism comes with major complications, obviously. Higher revenue schools are likely to lean on outside NIL collectives and boosters to supplement their salary caps, creating a de facto pay-for-play system that contradicts the settlement's original intent. The new College Sports Commission, equipped with an NIL clearinghouse run by Deloitte, dubbed NIL Go, is designed to vet third-party NIL deals and enforce compliance, but many in the industry doubt its power or efficiency, citing past failures by the NCAA to regulate such deals. The financial burden of the settlement is another challenge, especially for schools like San Diego State, which do not benefit from massive TV contracts like the SEC or the Big Ten. If you look at the latest reports that we have gotten in terms of some rumors of what the Pac-12 deal will be for San Diego State, you're looking at $7 to $10 million a year in TV revenue per school. $7 to $10 million. They are capping things at $20.5 million that you could pay up to, which is roughly like 20%. Or maybe closer to a little bit higher than that. I know that from the Big 12 perspective, their payouts are of almost a $50 million in TV revenue and revenue sharing when it comes to making the NCAA tournament in basketball and make the college football playoff and the bowl payouts. The schools in the Big 12 are getting $50 million a year. The SEC and the Big 10 are making close to $100 million a year per school. San Diego State might get $7 to $10 million. And so now schools are scrambling to cover $20 million cap through a combination of student fees, which is insane, increased fundraising, university subsidies, and even cost-cutting measures like reducing non-essential sports or athlete benefits. Some programs have already begun slashing sports outside of football and basketball. Even within athletic departments' internal strife is growing. Coaches from different sports are lobbying for a larger share of the revenue pool, potentially straining relationships. With no mandated formula for how funds should be split, schools are on their own to decide, leading to clashes between football, basketball, and Olympic sport programs. Additionally, new revenue share contracts are being written with language rarely seen in college sports, buyout clauses, injury clauses, performance-based incentives that mirror pro sports. But these deals are legally untested, and with players now seen as semi-professionals, disputes over compensation could become common. The financial structure of college sports is now being fundamentally reshaped. Programs will have to budget seasonally, managing rev cap, resources across different fiscal years, which may lead to NFL-style roster planning and cap manipulation, including possible tanking to save money for future transfer portal spending. Finally, while the new system attempts to bring clarity and fairness, legal challenges are far from over. Conflicts with state NIL laws and other pending lawsuits like Johnson versus the NCAA, which challenges the employment status of athletes, promise to keep college athletics in flux. And we, by the way, have not even talked about Title IX yet, because this does not apply to Title IX. So for programs like San Diego State, the question becomes, how do you keep up without blowing up the system? With no power conference media deal, limited booster funds, and heavily reliance on public funding and potentially student fees, San Diego State may be entering a new college sports era that favors the ultra-rich and risks widening the competitive gap further than before. There's a lot to unpack there. But when you look at the overall landscape of college athletics, you got to look at the two organizations, and I say organizations, the Big Ten and the SEC, pushing everything that can afford to make all these moves. They're not doing it because they like the players, and therefore the players, and they should be getting paid. They're doing it because they know they're the only ones that could be paying these kinds of paying for these kinds of situations and rules. And they know they're going to get all the best. It benefits them the most. You start talking about some of the things that schools are doing. Schools like Virginia Tech and Iowa State are exploring or implementing higher student fees to cover the new $20.5 million cap. Think about that for a second. Increased student fees. Think about how expensive college is right now as it is. It was expensive when I went. When I was at TCU, the tuition was $45,000. That has now doubled. Now it's a private school. It's a little bit different. I don't know what the tuition is at San Diego State for in-state students. But to have San Diego State, and I don't think they're doing this, but this is something Virginia Tech and Iowa State are looking into. Those are state schools, by the way. For everything that it costs to go to college, to have to pay more in some type of fee to pay an 18-year-old money to play football is utterly outrageous. The athletic department and the school have been always separate. It's been two separate entities. Some schools have the athletic department kind of fund a little bit of the school, and some schools have the school academic side fund a little bit of the athletic side when ends don't meet. But overall, at most universities, they're separate entities. To ask students that already have to take out massive loans that put themselves in student debt to have to pay more fees to go to college to make sure that some college athletes get paid more than most people in the area make for a living is utterly ridiculous, which has led to other conversations and other questions. One anonymous administrator said in this whole article in the New York Times that we summarized, if a player is making $500,000 a year, why am I still paying for 3 meals a day? Should perks like full meal plans and extra benefits continue if players are pulling in 6 figures? I mean, think about the deal that they're getting. It's a pretty insane deal. It was already a crazy deal. And it was never enough. And here's the thing, it will never be enough. The more you allow, the more they will take, and the more they will push for additional benefit. That's always going to be the case. So if you look at it, it's like, how much money is enough for a college kid to work a job? Because it is a job. I mean, being a college athlete is a job. How much money is it makes sense for them to work said job and get school paid for, and get food paid for, and get housing paid for, and all of these things? As college debt continues to increase for the kids that are going there for school. It's getting to an absurd level. An absurd level. How much of these perks and extra benefits continue if you're paying the guys? I mean, I don't make $500,000. Frank doesn't make $500,000. Got to pay for our own stuff all the time. Like, how much more do you need on top of all of the free stuff that you get? I worked in college athletics at a Power 5 program. They got a lot of free stuff. I mean, they got tons of free stuff that equates to hundreds of thousands of dollars per athlete in terms of all of the benefits. The athletes wanted cash instead. That's fine. But they're going to get the hundreds of thousands of dollars and all the benefits and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars for playing the sport, which is really just centralized on football. And the question becomes, is it worth that to pay for your football program or your basketball program to be really good at basketball or football for a kid to leave at the end of the year because he's not getting enough? Crazy. If you look at San Diego State as a whole when we come back, but you ask like people to pay for season tickets for San Diego State football, which they're having a hard time doing. And then on top of that, in paying the thousands of dollars for season tickets, at least for like the nicer areas, to then write a check for the athletes to be able to for the team to be able to go get college athletes to play for their school on all one-year deals. That's what the buying of the season tickets and the merchandise should be doing, right? In a professional landscape, that's what it is. Now imagine for a second, because this is so backwards, it doesn't make any sense. Imagine for a second that as Padres fans, your team is all on a one-year deal. Now, I think a lot of people would like that for certain players. But Tatis is on a one-year deal. Manny's on a one-year deal. Cronenworth, Bogarts, all those guys. One-year deal. And you spend thousands of dollars on season tickets, and you spend money on food at the ballpark, and you spend this and that, and you're buying jerseys and merchandise and all that stuff. And on top of that, the San Diego Padres ask you to donate to their fund to pay the players because they're not going to do it. That would be totally outrageous. Outrageous. And so when you look at this is why it's not sustainable, this like method of paying for college athletes. Eventually, the well is going to run dry for a lot of these booster clubs. Now, there are a lot of people that have so much money they could just get rid of it and set it on fire. But to have that happen year in and year out on athletes that are just going to get up and leave, like the Nico situation with Tennessee. They gave him a ton of money, and it wasn't good enough, and then he left. I don't know where this leads aside from potentially making these guys employees. I mean, they have, and the thing is the NCAA let this thing roll on for way too long. Way too long. I think there's some rules in this House settlement that eliminate some of the Wild Wild West needs. But I'm looking at San Diego State and being in the Pac-12 and getting how are you competing? How do you compete with $7 to $10 million in TV revenue that you're going to have to share with your athletes? You're going to have to gut your athletic department because you still got to pay to fly these guys all over the place and everything like that. I don't know how you're going to be able to compete if you're San Diego State from a football perspective. Now, basketball is a little bit different. You don't have to pay as much. But you look at this new deal, right? It is going to be very beneficial for San Diego, for teams and schools that don't have football. That's why I thought letting Gonzaga in the Pac-12 was catastrophically bad for all the other schools that are good at basketball. You can spend up to $20.5 million on all of your sports teams. The majority of that money is going to go to football teams because that's your biggest revenue. So as the Pac-12 collects this money and their football programs collect money if they go to bowl games or they make the college football playoff and then they split it, Gonzaga is going to use all that money and they're going to pump it into what? They're going to pump it into basketball. They're going to take all of their $20.5 million if they get to that number, and I don't know if they can. San Diego State knows that they can't get to that number. If they can, it's great. But Gonzaga is going to pump all that into men's basketball. How are you it's going to be, the scale is going to be all over the place. I don't know how you fix this problem. It got slightly better with the House settlement, but it again opens up more cans of worms that you have to deal with. Should San Diego State football and basketball hoard most of the new money? We're going to answer that question when we come back before we get to the sports thread on the Braden Surprenant Show on San Diego's number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan. We're going to get to the sports thread in just a little bit. Again, the latest figures that we got from John Wilner about a potential contract for the Pac-12 is $7 to $10 million per school. I think that's pretty generous, to be honest with you. I mean, you're talking about San Diego State, Fresno State, Colorado State, Boise State, Gonzaga, Washington State, Oregon State, and who knows? Sounds like it might be Texas State. I don't know if any of those schools are going to drive major TV revenue. Everybody freaked out about this House settlement because they had representation of all five of the conferences, the power ones. They're like, look, they think the Pac-12 is a power conference. No, they do not. They still get money from USC and UCLA and Oregon and all those schools. They still get that money. That's why they're there. Do not be gaslit on the situation of exactly what's going on in college athletics in town. Let's talk about basketball and football real quick for San Diego State. Again, they can spend up to $20.5 million on all of their sports teams in direct pay to players. San Diego State can. Now, whether or not they have that kind of money remains to be seen. But that is from a collective of a certain percentage of most of what these schools, the power schools, get. And it's set the precedent for everybody else. So if San Diego State gets that kind of money, they can use up to $20.5 million. We have heard J.D. Wicker say they don't have that kind of money. But we'll see. I would think Texas State's probably the last team in the Pac-12. But again, we've been hearing this since March about the Pac-12. We are close to a TV deal. We are close to adding our last team. It is June 13th. Still haven't had any notices yet. Any updates to the situation at hand? But again, let's say whatever the allotment is for San Diego State that they have, what percentage should be going to football and basketball? To be honest with you, I don't know how you save the football program at San Diego State. It is dire. And again, it's nothing that Sean Lewis has done. It is nothing that their program has done in terms of just having enough funds to compete with everybody else. I don't know how they can keep it running. I don't know. I mean, you have to start from scratch to try to get people to go to games here in San Diego, and even then might not be enough. I don't know how you resurrect the Aztec football program. I think right now, and I want them to be around, and I love college football. I am the biggest college football fan at our station. I love watching everything. I love that. I want San Diego to be a part of it. But I'm telling you right now, I don't know how San Diego State football exists in the next 10 years, more than 10 years down the road. I don't know how it does in this ever-changing landscape. They have all the same problems like the Padres do when it comes to corporate sponsors and getting backing from I mean, it's the same. It's the same with the city of San Diego. It's a small market. People always get upset by that. They get offended by the small market comment. The market has nothing to do with population or fan presence. It has everything to do with the television market. You got a desert to the east. You got an international border to the south. You got a major city to the north. And you got the Pacific Ocean to the west. You're confined in a small corner of the world. And until you can get some funding or get some type of engagement in the community in your program, it is an uphill battle. So from that perspective, and you're taking your allotment of funds, I still think you got to spend money on football to try to keep it going because it's your biggest moneymaker. But at the same time, you got to spend a lot on Aztec basketball because Aztec basketball is the best thing that program that school has in terms of athletics, at least from the men's side. You got to spend a lot of money on Aztec basketball. They got a great team this year in the fall. They got to be able to replicate that over and over and over again and continue to put money into the program and have that carry you. But, and it's a lot easier than doing it for football, but football, I don't know how you fix the football program at San Diego State and get people involved and get people to go and all that other stuff. I mean, at this point, it's just with everything laid out, I don't know how much longer they could be at an FBS level, if they even have football at all. I mean, Gonzaga is going to pass already kind of in front of you, but they're going to do all their funds into basketball. You're not going to be the biggest spender in your own new conference. Football does a lot of great things for teams and communities, everything like that, but it's just like, I don't know how you fix that program. It's got to be tough. And just blindly throwing money at it's not going to get the job done either. I mean, you got to find a way to generate revenue with that program. You built a brand new stadium. Now, here's the thing, though. Here's something that was outlined in an article by Mark Ziegler. The football stadium they have, Snapdragon Stadium, is an asset for the Aztecs because they fill it with other things throughout the year. So they are getting money that way. That is an asset. But they got to try to generate some excitement with the football program to try to tread water and then hopefully climb the way up. This is why I was screaming at the top of my lungs that they had to find a way into a power conference, regardless if they were playing by different rules, regardless if they're going to get less money than the other schools in their conference. It was going to save their ass. And they blew it off. Maybe there wasn't as much of a deal as there was in place that was initially reported. But they should have been doing whatever it took to be in the Big 12 or whatever it took to be in a power conference, and they should have known better that the Pac-12 all had their fingers crossed behind their back. When a conference never wanted to entertain you ever, all of a sudden got desperate enough to say, you're welcome, you should have just been like, forget you, we're going elsewhere. You had the opportunity to do that, and they failed. And now they're in a world of S. And it starts with your biggest revenue sport, which is always football, and it's a problem right now. Sean Lewis has his work cut out for him in the football department over at San Diego State, and has nothing. And again, there's not much they could do as a football staff except for just try to win football games. A lot of this is stacked against the Aztecs. But we'll see what happens. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. It's going to be interesting when you see allotment of funding. I mean, you're going to see a lot of sports go away that get kids scholarships that were never going to go pro to begin with. A lot of women's sports, a lot of men's sports. I mean, you might see a lot of baseball programs get hit. I mean, they're already getting rid of volleyball everywhere for men's. Wrestling's getting cut up. I mean, they're going to start just destroying sports programs, and they're going to keep the bare minimum to be an NCAA institution. Who knows if that number changes or not, because the NCAA does not have any jurisdiction anymore in reality. All right, very quickly, let's get to today's sports thread.
You know that group chat? The one that's always blowing up with the biggest sports takes, debates, and breaking news?
You got barbecue back there, and you didn't invite me?
Yeah, we've got that too. Welcome to the Sports Thread, where we break down the top 5 stories in sports, just like you would with your crew.
Oh no! Disaster! What a bad idea!
No filters, no silence, just real talk.
All right, Frank. I put you through the ringer. Let's see how fast we can do this.
Let's see.
Number 1.
For the first time in the sport's history, the NASCAR Cup Series heads south of the border to run a race at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez in Mexico City. This will not be the first time that NASCAR has gone to the circuit, however. The NASCAR Xfinity Series, think NASCAR's version of AAA, went to the circuit from 2005 to 2008 with a different layout from the Grand Prix layout you'll see when Formula One heads there in October. The race will be on Sunday at noon on Prime Video, with the Xfinity race being on Saturday at 1:30 on the CW. Braden, do you think this bold step for NASCAR will pay off in Mexico?
Maybe in a couple of years. I mean, Mexico likes racing. Just had a Baja 500 going on down there. Why not expand if you got tracks to expand in? I'd like to see a street race in San Diego.
Fan favorite, Daniel Suarez from Mexico, so he'll be heavily backed.
Number 2.
News broke late last night that former Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver Antonio Brown is wanted by law enforcement in Miami-Dade County for attempted murder with a firearm. The charges stem from a shooting at a celebrity boxing event in Miami last month. The warrant for Brown's arrest also includes a $10,000 bond and house arrest until his trial. Police had initially arrested Brown but let him go a few hours later. Is this saddening or expected, this fall from grace that Antonio Brown has had?
It's kind of sad, but I mean, he's a super wild card right now. I mean, he's just off the hook. I mean, hopefully he can get some help with the things that he's been doing. And then he was still popping up on Twitter, during this entire thing. It's crazy.
Yep.
Number 3.
The Edmonton Oilers tied up the Stanley Cup Finals in overtime last night. It was capped by a historic goal. Leon Draisaitl scored the overtime winner for the Oilers. It was Draisaitl's 4th overtime goal of these Stanley Cup playoffs, giving him the most all-time for a single postseason, with 2 of his 4 coming in both of Edmonton's finals wins. Could this be one of the greatest postseason runs in the history of sports?
Well, it's cinema in the Stanley Cup final. Overtime, double overtime, 9 goals scored, and then overtime again. It's been pretty fun watching the Stanley Cup final.
It has been absolutely incredible. Must-see television.
Number 4.
Cinema.
Having a league with few stars is bad enough, but having a league with only one is catastrophic. The Indiana Fever have been without Caitlin Clark since May 28th, and the Fever, as well as the WNBA, have felt it. Since Clark's injury, the WNBA's national viewership is down 55%, with Indiana Fever nationally televised viewership down 53%, and probably worse, there is no announced timeline for Caitlin Clark's return. Should this be a warning to all leagues to spread the wealth as far as making new and promoting stars?
Yeah, you should spread the wealth. If you're relying on one player to run your league, it's not going to work out for you. I mean, think about how long it's taken golf to be able to do what they've done without Tiger.
Yeah.
Great job on that, Frank.
The last one was going to be about Jacob Mizorowski. Did you see
my God.
That was awful.
Rolled his ankle.
Yep.
How long is he out for?
He was out because of a tight calf, I believe. So it wasn't the ankle injury that took him out of the game.
That was an embarrassing way to leave. Great job by Frank Marchese on the Sports Thread. When we come back, let's talk Padres and Diamondbacks on the Braden Surprenant Show.
San Diego, it's time to fire it up. From the beaches to the ballparks, from the gas lamp to North County, no one knows America's finest city like he does.
You can't just punt on a Manny Machado prime use.
He's a fourth-generation San Diegan, born and raised in the heart of this community. Passionate, opinionated, and always bringing you the real talk on your teams, your city, and everything in between.
Braden totally knows his stuff. He's ready for the next step. That guy is good.
Live and local, it's the Braden Surprenant Show.
But I think Braden's one of the up-and-coming young stars in the media game in San Diego.
Now, here's your host, Braden Surprenant.
Time for the lunchtime hour on the Braden Surprenant Show. It's brought to you by the Craft Taco. Bold flavors at 2 locations, Sorrento Valley and inside Balboa Park's Natural History Museum. It's a great time. When are we going to get Frank to Craft Taco?
It's going to have to be soon because I'm getting sick and tired of answering that question.
I'm going to ask you. I'm just going to keep asking.
If I had an answer to that question, I would answer that question.
They talk about, don't they do like some event on Fridays? Do they have a new thing today or?
I don't know. Again, not my week to watch them.
To watch the Craft Taco. They're at the Natural History Museum. They usually do some events down there on Friday nights. So if you want to get some Craft Taco, go down to the Natural History Museum.
Good idea.
And they usually do some type of event down there on Friday nights. I forget what it's called, but something going over. But you got to get the Craft Taco. There's a good future date idea for you.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Craft Taco, Torrey Pine State Beach. Well, beach dinner. You don't even have to go on the beach. You can park your car on whatever that street's called at Torrey Pine State Beach. Don't have to pay for those spots. Have a nice Cali B. California burrito was good. California burrito's money at Craft Taco. But you also mix in some other stuff. The ahi poke taco is delicious. I like their carne asada and their al pastor as well. Got a couple other ones that are delicious. But what are you doing this weekend? Going to Craft Taco?
Probably, yes.
You can even take a hike after. You can hike Torrey Pines.
Right, because
you can hike Torrey Pines first and then go to Craft Taco.
That's probably the better way.
On the way home.
That's probably the better way to do it.
I think that is the better way to do it. Go work up an appetite. Have you hiked Torrey before?
I have not, no.
You've never hiked Torrey?
No, believe it or not, when you're 394 pounds, your outside activity isn't necessarily all that high on your to-do list.
Well, you're not that,
I'm not anymore. But
so now you can go hike Torrey Pines.
Yeah, I could. I definitely could.
Well, yes. It's a great hike, especially in the morning. So you can go like 9 or 10 in the morning, which goes back to our original topic earlier today about doing things, shouldn't be doing these things as a local because you know it's going to be packed.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, around that time it'll probably be packed, but go hike Torrey. Goes up there. You could see some of the Torrey Pines North course. Walk back down that gigantic hill. Get in your car, drive over to Craft Taco. It's not too far away.
I am a fan of any hike at any time of year that keeps me as far away from snakes as possible.
It's going to be hard to find those in San Diego, Southern California. But hey, you know what? If you go during when it's hot outside, they're not going to be moseying around too much.
Yeah, because they'll be out sunbathing. So I'll be able to see them before they bite me in the leg.
You just find them on the trail every once in a while, but not a ton over by the beach. But it's good. You hike. You go up the nasty hill first. You got to time it with the tides.
Okay.
Go up the nasty hill first. That just seems awful, and then you hike down on the trails to the beach, and then you walk the beach back.
That's better.
That's how
I'll
you
walk
do it.
a beach. That's
you
fine.
walk the beach back. You get the hard part out of the way. Walk the beach back. And then you go and get Craft Taco.
There you go. Sounds like a deal.
Or you could do it later in the day and catch the sunset, you know? We're getting a lot of ideas right now in the chat. We're looking out for you.
I appreciate it.
And then people are like weighing in on what they should spend their athletics money on. I think, you know what? Frank should spend his NIL money on some craft taco.
There it is. I agree. On some craft taco or a craft taco? Another location.
Well, they have to. Well, the other one's down. And this one makes sense for like the whatever. If you not a hike guy, big history buff.
Yes.
You could go to the Natural History Museum.
I would be more inclined to go to the Natural History Museum.
Well, it's close to your house.
That
for
too.
one. Go to Balboa Park. You could do the Balboa Park Day.
There you go.
Walk around Balboa Park. Go to the Natural History Museum. Learn some natural history and stuff.
Naturally historize.
Yes. And then you can eat a taco.
See, with me,
or some mini tacos.
With me, because of who I am, I would probably spend my most of my day in the train museum.
See, you know what? You could do that.
Followed by the Air and Space Museum, and then
the train museum's great.
Yeah, I know it is,
but they don't have craft taco there, so
it's
not as great.
Craft taco, get on that one. We need a craft taco
at the train museum,
in the Railroad Museum,
okay,
in Balboa Park.
Yes, prolific nose. As you do awesome hikes around San Diego, Frank, add potato chip rock when you have out of town hiking friends. I have never done the potato chip rock one.
Again, it's
very cliche.
Again, I will do any hike that is nowhere near Ann Snake.
Ann Snake. I knew Jocelyn was going to be lurking in the chat. She keeps waiting for your answers, big dog.
I'm sure.
She wants the tea. The funny thing is we talked about this on Tuesday, and then I went to the Padre game, and then one of the bits they do on the video board was like, what does this slang term mean?
Okay.
And it was tea. It was perfect timing. Jocelyn is the queen of tea, as you could tell by the eye emojis in the YouTube chat.
She wants the tea. Thoroughly recognized here.
Yes. I'm convinced, Jocelyn, that yesterday Frank sabotaged the StreamYard as to not be pressured by your search of tea.
I would have needed to have sabotaged Google because that was the big issue.
Oh, well, maybe you did.
I have outreach, Things happen when I need stuff done.
833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Let's talk about... I don't really want to talk about the snakes too much. Speaking of snakes.
Neither do I.
I hate snakes. Why do they have to be snakes? Let's talk about what could be a glaring problem for the Padres as laid out by Kevin Acee yesterday. Padres' 5-2 loss to the Dodgers highlighted a deeper issue, an overworked bullpen that has carried the team through a stretch of close games while the rotation and offense lag. To summarize, manager Mike Shildt managed with urgency, pulling starter Randy Vasquez early to bring in lefty Adrian Morejon to face Shohei Ohtani. But the bullpen faltered again. San Diego relievers have been asked to shoulder immense responsibility, especially with inconsistent starting pitching and light hitting offense. Despite being in playoff position, the Padres are running on hope. Hope that injured starters, Yu Darvish, Michael King, return strong. Hope that rookies hold up. Hope that the bullpen doesn't collapse from fatigue. And hope that their offense finally wakes up. The reality, there's a lot of maybes and too much hope might be holding up a fragile playoff push. Is Mike Shildt overmanaging the bullpen, or is he doing what he must with what he's got? I think 2 days ago, when you talk about the Randy Vasquez situation, we talked about it yesterday. I don't think that's Mike Shildt overmanaging the bullpen. I think that's doing what he must do in order to win a game. I think in order to win Wednesday's game, they needed to take those chances. Even when you play all the right cards, it is, as we talked about with the human element of things, a wild card. Adrian Morejon kicking around 2 balls this week defensively. Very uncharacteristic. Even though it was the right play to have him as the lefty out of the bullpen. They didn't let Randy Vasquez go deeper into the game. I don't think he needed to do that in this particular game. Not with the bullpen that you have, even though they have been overworked. What really needs to happen is the starting rotation needs to eat a lot more innings than they've done. This week was not a lot. Now, Randy Vasquez, I think, is slightly different. I think the situation at that point in time called for Adrian Morejon coming in for Randy Vasquez. In terms of Monday, though, Pavetta's got to get you more than 4 innings. Now, he's all season has been consistently getting you deeper into games. I thought you finally got out of Dylan Cease, which was good to see. But you need your starting pitching to start picking it up a little bit, even though they are banged up. You got to try to take some pressure off the bullpen, who has carried you the last 2 weeks with Manny Machado. There was some mention about the 2021 team in which the bullpen was just like on fumes and it eventually gave way. The levee eventually broke when the starting staff had multiple injuries as part of the 2021 collapse. I think the bullpen is tired right now. I think it's a little overworked, but I don't think it's fried yet. And I don't think we're close to the 2021 season yet. There's a lot of maybes that were listed in this article, as I mentioned before. Can you build a playoff team on hope and patchwork? The reality is no, you can't. There's only so much hopium you can have. You do have to address the left field position. You do have to get some starting pitching healthy. And you do need better production out of your core 6, which hasn't been the case the entire season. Those things need to change. Those are the things that they are in control of. More so than maybe going to get a left fielder or maybe a center fielder, or a catcher or anything like that. Padres' biggest deadline need? Starter, reliever, or a bat. They need all 3. We'll answer that when we come back and get you a preview of the Diamondbacks before we are joined by a guest to finish up the 12 o'clock hour on the Braden Surprenant Show on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Lunchtime Hour brought to you by the Craft Taco. Both flavors at 2 locations, Sereno Valley and inside Balboa Park's Natural History Museum. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. Welcome back to the Braden Surprenant Show on San Diego's number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan. We're going to have Chris Garagiola on coming up in the next segment. Arizona Diamondbacks broadcaster will give us a full preview of the Arizona Diamondbacks. We'll try to talk about some of it right here, but we do want to answer the question, and I don't really think it's that difficult of a question to answer. When it comes to the deadline, Padres have multiple needs. Left field has been a black hole. Starting pitching now all of a sudden is in flux because of no real timetable for return for both Michael King and Yu Darvish, although it sounds a little bit more promising out of Yu Darvish here. But again, he's 38 years old. He has already made one rehab assignment this year. It was earlier in the month of May and did not feel great after that. At least his elbow didn't. He's on the trip to Arizona, and he should be logging some innings, not in the MLB games, but at the complex, spring training complex. There's currently no timetable for return for Michael King. Kind of a fluke of an injury, as laid out in the article from Kevin Acee. So he's still getting evaluated. Dylan Cease, up until last outing, and again, right before his last outing against the Dodgers, in which he went 7 shutty with 11 punch-outs, Dylan Cease had been talking to Eno Saris, saying that he felt like he was about to get hot. But even before then, I mean, it had been a while of Dylan Cease not really performing at a high level. You brought in Nick Pivetta to be your number 4, and he's currently your number 1, maybe right now. He didn't look that great earlier this week against the Dodgers. But even though left field is a glaring hole, has the starting pitching now turned into a major area of need for the San Diego Padres? What about bullpen help? Sounds like the Padres could use a bat or 2, could use a starting pitcher, and maybe even a reliever, even though their bullpen might be their best asset. Assuming that the Padres don't run it into the ground, because they're not getting the help they need of the starting pitching or the offense to make it not as stressful of a workload for the bullpen. So if you could only make one trade at the deadline, what position are you trading for? Starting pitcher? A left fielder? Or maybe an extra bullpen arm? I think you could cross bullpen arm off the list if you're just going to make one trade. I think it would be kind of foolish. Not really foolish, but there's so many other areas of need that I think are more important than just a bullpen arm. I think your bullpen as a whole is your biggest strength. I think you could add a bullpen piece, but if you're only going to get your one shot, I don't necessarily think it's the bullpen. Looking at left field and starting pitcher, my answer for this is automatically left field. I think you can survive with the pitching that you have. I mean, if you look at the Dodgers last year, and you can't always replicate what teams do, but when you have a really good bullpen and your starting pitching depth is a little beat up, there is a path for you to win a World Series. If you can get King healthy, you can roll with 3 guys in the starting rotation. Maybe a 4th if Yu Darvish ever comes back. I think you can survive with what you have. I think it costs too much money to go get a starting pitcher anyway. At 1 o'clock, we're going to talk about the 20 things that Jim Bowden is hearing 49 days out of the trade deadline. One of them involves a pitcher that had been linked to the Padres, at least fans want to trade for him, that a team that's not contending doesn't want to trade. And we'll talk about that later on in the 1 o'clock hour, as well as give away tickets to the Padres and Royals game. But as of right now, I don't know. I'd probably go with the left fielder. Now, the argument for starting pitching is you can say, well, right now with the left field situation that we have, they're still finding ways to win games. And you still need your top six, your core six, to do a lot of damage. They're currently not doing that. They're still winning games. There's a lot of times where you don't notice that the left field is going over at the plate because the starting six, the core six players of Machado and Merrill and Tatis and Arise and Bogarts and Cronenworth are actually getting the job done. So you can make the argument, maybe offensively we're just good enough to be able to win in the postseason. If we add an extra arm and shut things down, it'll be even better because it will help our bullpen out a little bit and everything like that. I don't really believe that too much. I think you need a left fielder. I think you need a left fielder bad. I don't think Jason Hayward coming back is going to help you. I don't think you can survive with Brandon Lockridge in left field. I don't think you can survive with Gavin Sheets in left field. I don't think you have a lot of options. So in terms of priority, I'd go left fielder over starting pitcher. You have to give up less to get a left fielder than you do have to get up for a starting pitcher. I'd much rather have a new left fielder. I think there's a lot of other options out there in Major League Baseball, and it's not even like you need a drastic upgrade. You just need better than what you have. Just slightly better than what you have. And that's not hard to find on the open market. Now, do you need a left-handed hitter or do you need a right-handed hitter? I think in particular, you'd get a right-handed hitter. You could use a DH too. I'd rather get some bats. I think your pitching staff's good. I think your pitching staff's good enough. I need bats. You need some type of spark to this lineup. And I think it's in the offensive spot. In terms of this weekend series, you're taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks for 3 as you continue your 26 games in 27 days. Arizona's 34-34. They're 4th in the NL West. And they trail LA by 6.5 games with a run differential of -4. They have won 7 games in their last 10, coming off of a sweep of Seattle. Their June OPS numbers are .802 as a team. 19 homers in June, led by Corbin Carroll and Eugenio Suarez. Starters with monthly OPS over 800. Carroll has a 1222. Marte with a 1225. Thomas has one over 800. Suarez, Naylor, Gurriel Jr. So the offense is starting to pick up in Arizona. It's not like they're not coming in a little red hot. They are beat up, but their offense is starting to turn things around. Their pitching staff is improving slightly, even though they have a lot of injuries. Team ERA is around 4.18 in June. Jalen Beeks and Shelby Miller combining with scoreless showings. Starting pitching matchup this weekend, you'll see Ryan Nelson tonight. You'll see Zach Gallen tomorrow, and you'll see Merrill Kelly on Sunday, some of their better pitchers of their staff. Ryan Nelson's 2-2 with a 4.60 ERA, mixed starter reliever, solid fielding independent pitching at a 3.68, but lacks stamina. Only 1 6+ innings pitched start this season, and he also has a career 5.61 ERA against the Padres. So hopefully San Diego can tag Ryan Nelson tonight. It would be nice. It would take some pressure off your bullpen. Again, high altitude, high desert of Arizona, ball likes to fly. Saturday against Gallen, high walk rate. He has struggled at Chase Field, but historically strong against the Padres with a 3.16 ERA. And then on Sunday with Merrill Kelly, he is your de facto number 1 for the Diamondbacks after the Burns injury. He is durable, effective, and strong with strong June starts. He has a home ERA of 2.59. So you really got to take advantage of the first 2 days against Arizona. Again, the rotation is a problem. Corbin Burns out for the year with Tommy John surgery. Jordan Montgomery was lost to the season for its season-ending Tommy John surgery. So now you have Merrill Kelly leading this reboot of number 2 to number 5 up for grab spots among Gallen, Nelson, Fott, and Rodriguez. Their bullpen is not very good in Arizona, 27th in ERA, which seeks consistency. They do have Shelby Miller and Beeks with June shutouts in the bullpen, but they've been struggling. And we mentioned the injuries that they have had. It's mostly to their pitching staff. So it'll be interesting to see what Arizona has. Again, 3 games against Arizona, 4 against the Dodgers, and then you play the Royals for 3 to finish out your first tough stretch of 2 this season, and you got to be around 500. I throw the Pirates series out of this 26 games in 27 days because I'm looking more at a finite number of the opponents in this group, and you got to be around 500, and right now you're at 500. Have to take 2 out of 3 from Milwaukee, after losing 2 out of 3 to the Dodgers and splitting with San Francisco in the mix. Need to take 2 out of 3 from Arizona this weekend, and then hopefully split with the Dodgers in LA next week. You should feel good about yourself navigating this kind of stretch. When we come back, we're going to get a full preview of the Arizona Diamondbacks as Chris Garagiola joins the show. He's a broadcaster for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He will join me next. We do need contestants for a midday sports standoff. If you can take me down in some sports trivia, you are entered for a chance to win a trip to Vegas. We'll talk more about that. But if you want to join the show, 833-288-0973 to take me down in trivia, 833-288-0973. We'll do that after we talk to Chris Garagiola on the Braden Surprenant Show, setting his number 1 sports station, 97 through the Fan. 12:34 on a Friday. It's part of our lunchtime hour brought to you by Craft Taco. I'm Braden Surprenant. He is Frank Marchese. This is the Braden Surprenant Show on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan, and the flagship of the San Diego Padres. The Padres get ready to take on the Arizona Diamondbacks for a 3-game series coming up this weekend. To get us a full preview of the Arizona Diamondbacks, their broadcaster Chris Garagiola joins us today on the Braden Surprenant Show. Chris, how's it going? How's your Friday going?
Pretty good. Not awesome that it's already like 108 degrees, but you know what you sign up for when you live here in Phoenix, so I am not going to waste time complaining.
We don't have that out here as much, so we don't have to worry about that too much. But good thing you guys have a roof on Chase Field out there in Arizona. A lot of moving parts when it comes to the Arizona Diamondbacks this year. Obviously, one of the most glaring storylines has been the starting rotation, or should I say the starting rotation that was, with the losses of Burns and Montgomery. Obviously, some guys having to step it up, but how do you expect the rotation to stabilize for the Arizona Diamondbacks after losing 2 major pieces to it?
Well, obviously that was a bit of a stinger, and you go back to a couple of years in that incredible run to the World Series where I think it was in game number 4, the Diamondbacks had to run with a bullpen game because they only had 4 legitimate starters in that rotation at the time. So what did Mike Hazen and his crew do? We're going to make sure that we have enough depth, and here we are, 2.5 years later, and going into spring, there was potentially 8 guys fighting for 5 spots. Now they're down to 5. And you're exactly right. At the beginning of the season, I know you lose Montgomery about 2 days before opening day, but the rotation was not good. They basically went the first 2 months of the season with a bottom 5 rotation ERA. And just as things were falling in place, especially with Corbin Burns, I mean, he was looking like he had been for the last 3 years. All of a sudden, a couple pitches later, he goes down, has to pull himself out of the game. And now, big question mark if we're even going to see him in 2026. So a long way to get to your question. There's 5 guys. They're kind of at the very fringes of their depth. If these guys can stay healthy and certainly pitch to what they're capable of, I think the Diamondbacks will be able to tread water. Any more injuries, though, and all of a sudden now you're going to have to start going to some AAA, maybe some AA arms.
Arizona Diamondbacks broadcaster Chris Garagiola joins us on the Braden Surprenant Show. Well, from a rotation standpoint, obviously taking a lot of hits with the starting rotation in terms of the injury bug. Now, offensively, one of the better lineups in Major League Baseball, one of the best lineups in the National League West. Corbin Carroll and Eugenio Suarez, Ketel Marte, back healthy. Josh Naylor off to a good start to the season. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. All of those players off to a pretty good June. June OPS numbers are high so far. Things are starting to heat up in Arizona. The offense looks like it's starting to heat up for the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, and going back to spring, there was all these question marks about losing Christian Walker, losing Jock Peterson. I mean, this is baseball's best run-scoring team in 2024, missed the postseason by a game. How would they be able to recreate that juice? And you mentioned, obviously, Josh Naylor. He's been a huge acquisition. Gabby Moreno has really picked it up since the end of April, where he really struggled. And you're talking about June numbers. Alec Thomas, the Diamondbacks have been looking for consistent center field play. They opened the year with Jake McCarthy. I think he was 4 for almost his first 40. He's been down in AAA since. And Thomas has quietly started to figure some things out with the stick. This is a team that can score runs when things are going right, and they can put up some runs against good pitching staffs as well. We've seen that. Unfortunately, early in the year, the pitching woes were so strong that even when the D-backs were scoring 8 runs, 10 runs, 12 runs in a game, they were still losing, where, math tells you if you score 6 runs, you're going to win like 82% of the time. So the offense has been there for the last 2 years. It's great to see what they're doing in June. They're going to have to keep it going because of some of the inconsistent play that we saw in April and in May. And, look, unlike the Padres, the D-backs are basically sitting at 500. They're running out of time here to decide if they want to be buyers or sellers. And a couple bad series, and all of a sudden, it kind of changes the direction of what this team thought they might be doing in 25.
I do want to ask about that in a little bit, but I want to ask this question first. And we've asked, and it's the first time that the Padres have played Arizona this year. This is the last NL West team that they have to play. They've already played everybody else in the National League. And I've asked every other member of the broadcast teams this question when it comes to the National League West and how their teams that they cover evaluate the National League West. With you being around the club, obviously, every single day, how does Arizona view the rest of the National League West in terms of competition? And is there extra added pressure right now, knowing that they are sitting behind 3 teams currently in the standings, even though not by that many games?
It's really an interesting question. I think the first part, how do you evaluate the National League West? I think we all agree it's the best division in baseball, top to bottom, and that is including a historically struggling Colorado Rockies team. But if you were to make an argument that any of the other 4 were in the postseason, I don't think anybody would bat an eye. And I certainly think going into the year, if you had said any of those 4 teams won the division, you could make an argument here or there, certainly against the Dodgers and that magnificent payroll, but it wouldn't be a huge shock, especially with some of the free agent moves and acquisitions the Giants made, certainly how good the Padres were last year. I mean, obviously a game away from advancing to the championship series. And for the Diamondbacks, getting arguably the top free agent pitcher in Corbin Burns and a nifty trade with Josh Naylor. So to the second part of your question, does this carry any extra pressure? Well, I would say maybe 10 years ago, the answer might be yes. Certainly in the expanded wild card format, that just stacking wins, no matter who they're against in this bound schedule, is going to help you ascend the ladder. But I think we can all agree, winning games against your division is the fastest way to put yourself back in the postseason mix. It's the only direct way to gain ground within this division. And like you aptly pointed out, despite some of the turbulent outings from the Diamondbacks, they're not totally out of it by no stretch of the imagination. You have a couple week great stretch. All of a sudden, you find yourself maybe 4, even 3 games back. So these games are really important, in my opinion. They're not backbreakers if you lose them, but man, it is like digging for gold if you're able to take a series win or even come out with a sweep.
Arizona Diamondbacks broadcaster Chris Garagiola joining us on the Braden Surprenant show. And these every single one of the, at least from the Padres standpoint, series against the National League West opponents minus the Rockies have been playoff level atmosphere games. So I'd expect the same this weekend in Arizona. You mentioned the trade deadline. And I think it's interesting because the Arizona Diamondbacks are in an interesting spot. I mean, obviously they're trying to compete this year. They do have some good young players as part of their organization. They do have some players like the Padres that are, done at the end of the year in free agents where they can pivot in either direction. How do you see this kind of playing out? You kind of teased it, but how do you see the Diamondbacks playing out at the trade deadline when it comes to, they got all these injuries that they have to try to fix maybe in the starting rotation. They got some interesting pieces that are rentals for other teams you could build for the future. How out of it do the Diamondbacks really have to be where they can sell to the fans that we're going to be sellers at the deadline?
Gosh, that is the dreaded question, right? That unfortunately has certainly been tossed around. And again, just echoing what General Manager Mike Hazen said, he said this last year. The team has to give me a reason to be buyers at the deadline, because you're right. Gallen isn't expiring. Merrill Kelly isn't expiring. Josh Naylor isn't expiring. You've got some guys in the bullpen that would certainly be interesting pieces to move here. And it'd be a real shame. I know that money's not supposed to matter, but the Diamondbacks set a franchise record for highest payroll. They really wanted to capitalize on this momentum here. I don't think they're out of it. If you're asking me to pick, I don't think they're going to be sellers at the deadline. But to answer your question, I think if we got to July 1st and this team were 5 or 6 games under, given the nature of how competitive the top of the National League is, not just the National League West, that's a tall mountain to climb. And to do it against a tsunami of injuries that you're talking about. I mean, I was just refreshing myself before we got on the phone today, right? Justin Martinez, who just pulled himself out a few days ago, could be potentially out the rest of the year with his second Tommy John. Montez de Oca sprained ligament in his elbow. Corbin Burns out for the year. Blake Walston out for the year. Jordan Montgomery out for the year, all with Tommy John. Like, it's not their fault. Arm injuries have been certainly on the rise, but even this, feels a little bit cruel. And the reality is the Diamondbacks, they don't have the payroll like the Dodgers have. I know they've got 14 pitchers on the IL, but, that's a $400 million bank account with which to spend. So the depth is a little bit different for that group than the rest of the field. So I hope that Gallen can maintain this nice kind of 2-start stretch of his. Merrill's just been an absolute mainstay for years. And if they can stabilize things, this team can still compete and can still win. But this month, June, is going to answer a lot of questions that people didn't want to have to look at, certainly going into the season.
Chris Garagiola, Arizona Diamondbacks broadcaster, joining us on the Braden Surprenant Show. Last question for you, kind of a preview of tonight's game. Ryan Nelson getting the ball for the Arizona Diamondbacks and Stephen Kolek getting the ball for the San Diego Padres. 6:40 start on the West Coast for this matchup. Chris, how do you, with all the work that you've done already in prep for tonight's game, how do you see this one particularly playing out from the starting pitching standpoint?
Well, it's going to be really interesting. Obviously, Diamondbacks fans might not know a lot about Stephen Kolek. I know that, primarily bullpen guy last year, but, seems to have fit in wonderfully in the starting rotation. 7 starts, a 3-1 record, I think I saw. So does a nice job limiting guys getting on base. On the flip side, Ryan Nelson, for Padre fans, this is a guy who, the Diamondbacks also had just a ton of injuries in 2024. And they had him, pitching every 5th day. And for about a 3-month stretch, he was the best starter in the Diamondbacks rotation. You go back to last year from July 2nd to September 3rd. That's the date range we kind of referenced a lot. He had basically a 12-start stretch where he was 5-0 with a 2.76 ERA. That's close to 100 innings pitched. That's legitimate. All right, you can throw the ball at this level. And again, with the injuries now, they're going to need him to tap into that form. He's got a great four-seam fastball, gets a lot of swing and miss, even in a day where hitters can really cope with good velocity. If they can provide some length, that's going to be the big key for the Diamondbacks in this series and moving forward. It's a tested bullpen. You need these starters to go 6, potentially 7 innings, try and give some of these guys in the pen a little bit of a breather, allow Torre to have better matchup games. If they do that, they can hang with anyone. If the Padres can get to Nelson early, it's going to be a tough day for the Diamondbacks.
Should be a fun weekend series, Chris. We appreciate the time as always and look forward to talking to you again.
Hey, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, guys. Take care.
Chris Garagiola, Arizona Diamondbacks broadcaster, joining us on the Braden Surprenant Show. And a big thanks to him for giving us a preview of the Arizona Diamondbacks and the San Diego Padres. All of these NLS games are battles. They are all battle. They're all playoff level games with the exception of the Rockies. We got to get to today's Midday Sports Standoff, though.
Welcome to Midday Sports Standoff on the Braden Surprenant Show.
I can't believe what I'm seeing right now.
The ultimate head-to-head battle where sports knowledge and quick thinking collide.
No, it's no good. Are you kidding me?
Contestants will go toe-to-toe with Braden in a sports trivia deal where every correct answer brings them closer to victory.
Down the sideline! Wow! Unbelievable!
But 3 strikes and it's game over.
This is not Detroit, man. This is the Super Bowl.
Can you outsmart Braden? The Midday Sports Standoff starts now.
All right, Frank, who we got playing today?
Today, we have Dom in Chula Vista. Dom, how you doing today, bud?
Doing great. How are you guys?
Good. All right. So today's topic, we're going to the NBA for this topic. And today's topic is going to be the last 10 NBA Finals losers. Now, there are 6 unique teams that have lost the last 10 NBA Finals, and you two have to give me all of them, or at least try to.
So we're going 2024 to 2014?
Yes.
All right.
All righty. So, Dom, you ready to go?
Yes.
All right. So your first guess would be?
Let's do the Miami Heat.
Miami Heat have lost twice. So that would be 2 points.
I'm going to go with we had 4 straight of the same. And Golden State won 3 of them. So I'm going to say Cleveland.
And that is 3 points. So, Dom, you're short by a point here.
Do the Boston Celtics.
Tied it back up. 3 points. Braden.
Golden State lost twice. They lost once to Cleveland, and they lost once to Toronto.
So, Dom, now you have to hope that Braden misses the next couple here to ensure yourself a tie because he's already halfway there.
Let's go with. Let's do the Toronto Raptors.
No, unfortunately not. Still just two teams left.
They won with Kawhi. Last year's loser, Dallas Mavericks.
Yep, and that will clinch the victory for Braden there. Do you want to still give the last guess?
I'll just do a shot in the dark. Let's go with let's do the Lakers.
No.
Been there. Phoenix Suns.
Yep, and that was the last one. So Braden takes home the victory today.
Flex on him.
There it is. Come on, why you gotta be rude?
Good effort by Dom. Call again next week. We really did it twice.
I think so,
We
yeah.
had like two this week. Did we have a winner on Monday, Tuesday? Whenever it was.
I believe we have had one winner this week.
If we had the one winner this week, they are in a good spot because they have qualified for a chance to win our grand prize. Celebrate summer with a spa and pool getaway at Resorts World Las Vegas, home of the largest elevated pool complex on the Strip. You will receive a 2-night stay at Resorts World Las Vegas, dine poolside at one of the 5 unique pool experiences, and experience the ultimate in relaxation and wellness at Awana Spa, one of the largest co-ed spa facilities in Las Vegas. To book your summer stay, please visit rwlasvegas.com. We have to give away tickets to the Padres Royals. Do we want to do a trivia question today? I think I should find one.
If you want to do that for next segment, sure. For the next break.
Yeah, going into the next break.
Yep.
Kansas City Royals. See if I can find a Kansas City Royals question that involves the Padres. I'm going to look for that. What can we do trivia question-wise?
Let's try to steer far away from anything EH related. That's about the only tip I can give you at the moment.
We could say that. Let me hang on one second. Let me see if I can look up. When did they win the World Series?
It's 15.
Yeah. Who was that against?
Stop it.
Maybe that should be the trivia question.
You've got the answer right there.
Yeah, well. Let's see if I can find something on here that's legit for the World Series team. Let's see. I was hoping that would be the case.
So, we still have. We got a minute of question finding mumbling here that we can do. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Here we go. I think I got one. Out of the 2015 Kansas City Royals, besides Eric Hosmer, who are the other two players on that roster to play for the San Diego Padres? How about that?
Seems fair to me.
Now, here's a hint. Those players played for the Padres before they played for the Royals. So out of the 2015 Kansas City Royals that went on to win a World Series, two of their players, all besides Eric Hosmer, played for the San Diego Padres. I only need one of them. And you will win tickets to see the Padres play the Royals on June 21st. Name one of the two other 2015 Kansas City Royals that played for the San Diego Padres, not named Eric Hosmer. If you call in, Frank, and are the first one to give me one of those names, you will win Padres tickets to Padres Royals on June 21st to celebrate Star Wars weekend with the Padres, June 20th through the 22nd. Join them for galaxy-sized fun and secure your seats at Padres.com/tickets. Hour number 4 coming up next. 1 o'clock on the Braden Surprenant Show. Final hour of the week. Wonderful fun week it was. We have our trivia question. My buddy was like, that's a messed up question because Dusty Coleman's one of the answers. Dusty Coleman had 4 at-bats for that team, so I don't include that. Nobody said Dusty Coleman. But the answer to the trivia question was, the 2015 Royals, since you're winning tickets to the Padres Royals, the World Series champion Kansas City Royals had 2 other Padres on the team besides Eric Hosmer. Name me one of them. One of them was Edison Volquez, which is who Vicente in National City said as the first caller. The other was Chris Young. Chris Young was the other Kansas City Royal that was also a San Diego Padre from the 2015 Kansas City Royals World Series team. Chris Young, Edison Volquez. If you would have said Dusty Coleman, I would have given you credit for it, but he played in 4 games that season. He does not qualify on the qualified list. That was a pretty good team. Salvador Perez, Eric Hosmer, Omar Infante, Alcides Escobar, Mike Moustakas, Alex Gordon, Lorenzo Cain, Alex Rios, Kendrys Morales, Ben Zobrist, Jared Dyson. Pitching staff, Edison Volquez, Urdano Ventura, Jeremy Guthrie, Danny Duffy, Chris Young, Johnny Cueto, Greg Holland, Ryan Madsen, Wade Davis, Kelvin Herrera. Today's trivia question. College World Series, Arizona has taken a 4-3 lead on Coastal Carolina, top of the 6th inning. Game was tied at 2 going into the 5th. Coastal added a run in the bottom of the 5th inning, and now in the top of the 6th with 1 out, runners on the corners, Arizona has a 4-3 lead after getting a knock with bases loaded. Wildcats leading in Game 1 of the Men's College World Series opening round. Game 2 will be coming up later, after the conclusion of Game 1. And that game will be Louisville and Oregon State. Cubs and Pirates scoreless in the top of the 7th. We went away from the race. Is the race over? The practice rounds?
Yeah, practice is over.
All right. I wanted to talk about this here in the 1 o'clock hour. We're going to have Drake Hills on at 1:30. But it's an interesting article from Jim Bowden. It might take us a couple segments to get through this. The 20 things he's hearing and watching for on MLB trade deadline with 50 days to go. We're now 49 days to go at the trade deadline. With 49 days, and I switched it now because this was written yesterday. With 49 days until the MLB trade deadline, front offices are laying the groundwork for what could be a chaotic and unpredictable season of trade. Several teams on the cusp or struggling face pressure to decide between buying or selling while contenders look to address key holes. Couple of ones that have stood out that he laid out in his article. The Orioles and Diamondbacks could headline the market if they decide to sell, offering impact players like Zach Gallen, Cedric Mullins, Josh Naylor, and Zach Eflin. We just talked about that with Chris Garagiola, broadcast for the Arizona Diamondbacks. If the Diamondbacks and the Orioles decide to be sellers, they got a lot available with guys that are rentals and other players that would be available to help improve their teams. Now, in talking with Chris Garagiola, he would not be shocked if the Diamondbacks turn into a seller if they're like 5 games under 500. I mean, to climb in the National League West that far out would be very difficult. But on top of that, the National League in general is very competitive in Major League Baseball. Now, unfortunately for the Padres, they're probably not going to get a deal done with the Arizona Diamondbacks. I mean, it's just probably not going to happen. It's very rare that teams trade interdivision, and if they do trade interdivision, it is usually during the offseason. So don't expect the Padres to trade for a pitcher like Zach Gallen or Merrill Kelly, or to potentially get one of their corner infielders in Josh Naylor or Eugenio Suarez to be like a DH. Now, the Orioles have a lot of availability that kind of coincide with the Padres. Zach Eflin, Charlie Morton. I don't know if I really want Charlie Morton at this point in time. Tomoyuki Sagano. They got position players like Cedric Mullins and Ryan O'Hearn, among others. We've talked about guys like Ramon Laureano, who's available could be available for the Baltimore Orioles as well. There's a lot of needs that the Padres have that coincide with the Baltimore Orioles. Now, the Orioles need pitching. And again, continuously with the Padres, I mean, they have pitching depth in the bullpen, but they don't necessarily have starting pitching depth that they can trade as part of their organization. They go on to say teams like the Padres, Mariners, Royals, and Cubs are expected to be aggressive buyers with specific needs in left field, power bats, and pitching depth. When talking more about the San Diego Padres, here's the exact quote from Jim Bowden's article about the trade deadline. Coming in at number 7 on the list of the 20 things that Jim Bowden is currently hearing. The Padres know they need another bat to lengthen their lineup and are focused on acquiring a left fielder. They might be willing to, again, dangle their best prospects to get it done as they try to take advantage of their roster's window to win a World Series. I do not think that the Padres are going to dangle their best prospects to get it done. I disagree with Jim Bowden there. I don't think that's going to be the case. In terms of dangling the best prospects or being aggressive, I mean, the Padres are going to be aggressive. We've gotten that report now from Jim Bowden. We've gotten that report from Dennis Lin. They're going to be aggressive at the trade deadline, but I don't think they're going to be giving up their top 2 prospects. This always happens too. Like when you talk about some national media members, and Jim Bowden's a former general manager, but always it's like the Padres always have to give up like the best player in their organization, and they never do. They hardly ever do that. You can say what you want about the Padres trade for Juan Soto. That was a little bit different because Juan Soto happened to be the best player on the market. You're not seeing that right now. There's no Juan Soto on the market in 2025. Now, if you're talking about some of their top 10 prospects, not Leo DeVries or Ethan Salas, maybe. But I only half agree with that Jim Bowden puts out. They're not the only ones looking for some outfield help. The Royals are shopping for a corner outfielder, and they realize they'll probably have to trade one of their top catching prospects in order to do so. And there was another expert on the Marlins. This one's interesting because a lot of people in the chat today have talked about trading for Sandy Alcantara. Says, don't expect the Marlins to trade Sandy, who's currently got a 7.14 ERA over 13 starts, while his value is down. Instead, they're expected to keep him until he regains his Cy Young Award form, which might not happen until later this year and maybe even next. They can always shop Alcantara, who is coming off Tommy John surgery in the offseason or the next trade deadline. His contract includes a $21 million team option for 2027. However, the Marlins will listen to inquiries on their corner outfielders this summer, since the teams like Padres and Royals, quote, might overpay for Kyle Stowers and Jesus Sanchez. There again, the overpay thing again. Interesting. Other news and notes and nuggets from this that stand out. Big names like Kenley Jansen, Tyler Anderson, Luis Robert Jr., and Eugenio Suarez could all be on the move. Dodgers, Braves, and Rangers are hoping to The Red Sox, Braves, and Rangers are hoping to avoid becoming sellers by getting healthy and turning their seasons around. Dodgers are trying to avoid being buyers just by getting healthy. And the other one that was listed I thought was very interesting in this article, and if you want to go check it out, it's in the Athletic. The front offices of most of the contending teams are underwhelmed by the players the obvious sellers have to dangle for potential deals. Half of these teams were on the list that we came up with on Tuesday. The Athletics, the Marlins, the Pirates, the White Sox, and the Rockies. Front offices underwhelmed by the players that these obvious sellers have available. I wonder if that shifts the market in terms of price for some of these players, like a Luis Robert Jr., potentially. Or like a Stowers of Miami. I mean, you look at we looked at the Rockies, what was that, on Tuesday, Frank? Hey, anybody on the Rockies you want in the Padres? No. The only one of the Pirates anybody's interested in would be Paul Skeens. The Paul Skeens interesting nugget is on there. Here's the latest on Paul Skeens. As Jim Bowden has written many of times, the Pirates have no interest in trading Paul Skeens as this year's deadline. However, multiple general managers have told Jim Bowden that won't stop them from making serious offers to acquire him. And if you're the Pirates, you have to listen because you have so many needs to fill on your big league team and also in your farm system. The return for Skeens in a trade would have to be even more than the haul that the Nationals got for Juan Soto at the 2022 deadline. However, he is the best pitcher in baseball with 4 more years of team control, so it arguably would be worth paying that type of package, as Jim Bowden lays out in his article. I have learned long ago in baseball, never say never. There are 5 questions that need to be asked at this year's deadline. We're going to answer those when we come back on the Braden Surprenant Show on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. I'll be off on Monday, but I'll be back on Tuesday. And Tuesday, we're going to be knee-deep in the Padres-Dodgers series round 2. Let's do that again. I'm going to do that one more time. I'm off on Monday. I'll be back on Tuesday. And by the time we're talking Tuesday, we're going to be breaking down Padres-Dodgers series 2 of the season. We're ready for the weekend here. We're close. We're close to the weekend. Padres got a 3-game series against the Arizona Diamondbacks. We got a lot of baseball coverage on today's show. Baseball coverage on 97 to the Fan, presented by T-Mobile at T-Mobile.com and get a great deal on iPhone 16 Pro. We'll be back on Tuesday. At least I will. And on Tuesday, we have a very special guest on with us. Frank did a good job of getting this said guest, which goes with the East-West All-Star Game, which is coming up next Thursday on June 19th to celebrate the history of the Negro Leagues. As part of the National Negro League Hall of Fame's traveling exhibitions, the Barrier Breakers exhibition is currently on display at the San Diego Public Library through next Friday, June 20th. So you need something to do this weekend, you can head on down to the San Diego Public Library and explore the history of the Negro Leagues and learn about those who broke baseball's color barrier. Let's talk about some of the big questions, Frank, with this year's trade deadline as laid out.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
5 questions that come from the Jim Bowden article. We'll let you take it away on this and we'll answer them together.
All right. So, should the Padres go all in to land a left fielder, even if it costs them one of their top prospects?
Is now the time to cash in the last chips, or have they already gone too far down the win now rabbit hole? I think, and I've said it before, that you need to, when you have players under contract for a long time, and they're like deep into like their 40s, like a lot of these contracts are, you need to win at the beginning part of the contracts to justify the means of the end of the contract. And so you cannot, as I say in my open, you cannot punt on a Manny Machado prime year. And for the next 2 or 3 years, I mean, after the last couple of years, this is the prime years of Manny Machado. This is when you need to go after it. Now, that being said, that does not mean be negligent when it comes to future trades. You don't want to hemorrhage the entire future for right now because it's never going to be a guarantee. Even if you get the players you need, it's never guaranteed because of how difficult it is to win in October in a sport like baseball. So I think it's twofold here. Do I think they should trade away DeVries or Salas for a left fielder? No, I do not, because I don't think you need to. One. Two, I don't think you should ever. I don't think there's anybody available that is going to almost guarantee you a World Series on this year's trade deadline that is worth trading away one of those players. I don't. So I think you could be all in without being completely all in on the let's just get rid of everybody in our farm system. So I think you should be in on winning and buying at the deadline, but I'm not willing to trade Salas or DeVries for anybody at this year's trade deadline. Your thoughts?
No, I agree 100%. This is a year where you really have to look at what do you need to become a competitive team when it comes to the postseason. And right now it's left fielder. A left fielder, as we've said over the last couple of weeks, you can get a left fielder. You are not looking, there's no generational talent like you had with Juan Soto a couple of years ago available at this trade deadline, or at least legitimately available. Of course, you could talk about Paul Skeens how often you want, which is our next question here. But this is not a year to completely mortgage the future of the franchise in the fleeting hopes of winning a World Series. This is just not that year.
I didn't think last year was either until all of a sudden they started playing super good at the end of the season. But that being said, no, I don't. You're not one player away. To me, you make that move if you're one player away or one, superstar away like that to go after it. Speaking of insane superstars. Now, what was said about Paul Skeens in this Jim Bowden article was, I have learned to never say never. So let's hear what you got.
Would you trade Paul Skeens if you were the Pittsburgh Pirates for a Juan Soto level haul or possibly even more?
You get 4 years of control, and he's arguably one of the best. He is the best pitcher in Major League Baseball, one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. He gets no help from his team. You gotta view it outside of the Pirates, because the Pirates do dumb things, right? So you have to view it from, if this was your organization. To me, when you think about these particular moves, could you is this a move that's like what Nico did with the Dallas Mavericks in trading a guy like Paul Skeens? Or would this be catastrophically worse? They could get a haul out of this. I mean, if it depends what the haul is, though. There's not a lot of teams that could probably do that. It would be worth it, I think, for any contending team because of the 4 years to make a move like this. Now, for the Pirates, are you willing to get rid of all of the publicity of having Paul Skeens in your team to replenish your roster and then basically alienate all your fans even more than you've already done by getting rid of Roberto Clemente's number on the wall, by ripping up the bricks that you had, by having all of the circus things that the ownership has already done? I don't think they could live down trading away Paul Skeens this early as part of his Pirates career, even though, think about the deal that the Nationals got. You'd get something a little bit better, probably. They got a pretty good haul for Juan Soto. We've seen it with James Wood and C.J. Abrams and Mackenzie Gore, but that's even if 3 of the players hit, which so far is working for the Nationals, is that enough to get rid of Paul Skeens? I'd say probably not.
And look at it from this way. Do you trust, with everything you just said about the Pittsburgh Pirates as an organization, do you trust the Pirates are going to get that value for him?
Are they going to get the value, or are they going to be able to develop that value? I mean, some of these minor leaguers, too, they could ruin some of these guys. Now, if you are the Pirates organization, you think that, you probably don't think that. Any organization, even if they're bad, they're not going to be like, well, we suck, dude. So we're going to ruin these guys. Nobody's thinking like that.
No, of course.
From a fan perspective, if you're a Pirates fan, you'd just be incensed.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely incensed.
Yeah, I can't see how in your right mind you could trade Paul Skeens. I really don't. unless it's the last year of the deal and the Pirates are still
And he's not going to
pirating.
re-sign with you, which
Yeah.
I don't think he is. I don't think he re-signs in Pittsburgh. I think he hates being there.
I don't think so either. All right. Next up to the American League. Well, mostly the American League. Which struggling contender is most under pressure at the deadline? The Orioles, Mariners, Red Sox, or the Bravos?
I think the Orioles are out of it at this point. I don't think they're coming
Agreed.
back.
Yeah.
They have too many things that they have to acquire that they decided not to do during the offseason. So I don't think they have pressure at the deadline. The pressure that they might have is being able to pull the trigger on some of the guys that they have on expiring contracts and getting rid of them. So not really the Orioles. The Mariners, I don't know what to make of the Mariners. Like they came down and beat our ass for 3 straight days, but they've struggled since then. To me, I think it's the Red Sox. I think the Red Sox will always have the most pressure out of a group of teams like that. I think Atlanta is understood because of the injuries that they've had at the beginning of the year, plus the suspension of Jerickson Profar. It's like they've been just treading water the whole time, and they're trying to climb out of a hole they dug themselves into. But a lot of it's out of their control. The Boston Red Sox is a little bit different. Like the Boston Red Sox was everybody's pick to win the American League at the beginning part of the season. And they're a couple of games under 500. They have good pieces to win. And if you're going to be the Red Sox and have the fan base that they have and go out there and potentially trade away Jarren Duran or not try to add when you're just right there, they're 3 games out of a wild card spot. The Red Sox are an organization that usually never sell. They have the most pressure to try to get things going in the American League East, especially since they were the team that was everybody's darling to win the American League.
And just think everything that's gone on with the Red Sox this year. Tristan Casas out again. You've got these questions about Jarren Duran. You have the youth movement that's coming in with Christian Campbell, Marcelo Mayer, and Roman Anthony. You've had the drama between Bregman and Devers. It's been a disaster of a season for the Boston Red Sox, and they're still like on the fringe of being a contender. It's not a bad year.
And that's even more reason why I don't think they're going to trade away Jarren Duran.
Exactly.
And that's why I think it was interesting for them to go get like a piece to go win this year and just be all in this year.
Yeah.
They're right there.
Next question here. Are the Dodgers unbeatable if they get healthy, or should they still make a splash at the deadline?
They're in kind of an interesting position, right? Because they have a plethora of pitching. It's just all on the injured list, but they're not like their main pieces in the starting rotation are not players that are out for the year. There's like a potential for them to all come back, like Snell, like Sasaki, right? Is Gonsolin one of those? They have almost everybody on the injured list. So
Glass now, I think was the one that's
right. So you're expecting them to come back, but you're rolling the dice here. If you don't make a move, right, and they don't get healthy, now what are you going to do? Like, they're very beatable all of a sudden. I think they're beatable anyway. If you don't make a move and they come back, like best case scenario is you don't make a move, they all come back. It's like adding 3 pitchers at the deadline anyway, right? And you're one of the best teams in Major League Baseball, and you have the best rotation in Major League Baseball. You are getting Ohtani back. Post All-Star game, you should be getting him back on the mound. So you are already adding another piece there. So it's a very interesting question. Now, they have the resources where they could just it's like a hedge bet. Right? They could make the hedge bet. They could go get a starting pitcher. Now there's no such thing as too much starting pitching. So now you have all these pitchers ready to go, and you'd be loaded for the season instead of last year where you had no starting pitching and all bullpen arms. This year you could potentially have all these starters. So I don't think they're unbeatable if they get healthy, but should they make a splash? I don't think they need to. So I don't think they should. I think they're going to just like roll with what they got, and I think they're going to take the chance.
The dangerous part about the Dodgers right now is their offense. They do not have a single fielder on the IL on their 40-man roster. It's all in the pitching staff. They are a very beatable team right now. My question, at least as far as the Dodgers is concerned, is when it comes to free agent pitching, is winning a World Series worth putting your arm through a meat grinder and never being the same pitcher again after it?
True.
That's the question. And that could hamstring them pretty severely in the future if enough pitchers say, no, it's not worth it. Final question. Could we see surprise retirements from Bochy or Snitker? And if so, should their teams go for it one last time?
I saw that rumor that they could potentially be retiring at the end of the year. Bochy for a second time now. It's just kind of like, to me, these guys never really retire because they always come back. Like Terry Francona, and a lot of them do it for health reasons, and then they still come back. It's like they can't get away from the sport. I don't think Bochy and Snitker potentially retiring should impact what your decision as an organization is in terms of buying or selling at the deadline. Because you don't even know if they're going to retire or not. And if you look at overall, you got to be thinking about the health of your organization more so than whether or not your managers retire. It would be a nice little send-off, but it's not like Bruce Bochy's been the all-time manager of the Rangers. He just got there and they won a World Series already. And you look at the Atlanta Braves, like Snitker has been there a long time, but they're so beat up as it is. I don't know if that needs to make them be bold at the deadline. Braves and Rangers, though, they're still right there and close enough where I can see them doing what they've done in the past and adding at the margins. I mean, the Braves have already done that before. So I could see them adding, but I don't think it's going to be because of the retirements potentially for Bochy or Snitker.
And you can also look at the position that the organizations are in, not just where they are right now. They've won recently.
Right.
Bochy's won a World Series with the Rangers. Snitker has won a World Series with the Braves. So it would be a little bit different and put more emphasis on it, I think, if they hadn't won for how much service they've had. But they both have. And it's been recently. It's been within the last 5 years for both of them.
If this was like Bochy with the Padres, like long time,
yeah,
right?
then I understand going
let's
for it.
Try to go for it and give them a chance. But these guys have, they've already won one each, and then
Bochy just won it 2 years ago.
I know, and you just won one each, and Bochy has been with his organization for like 3 years, 4 years max. I can't even remember. I mean, but he hasn't been there very long.
No.
So anyway, good work on that, Frank. When we come back, we'll get you the Soccer 101. Drake Hills, contributing writer for Black Players for Change. Change will come on the show, and we will talk some San Diego FC. Just knocked off Club America earlier in the week, whatever level team that was that Club America put out there. And they get ready for Minnesota United FC coming up tomorrow of a first of a 3-match road trip after spending most of the month of May at home. We'll talk about it with Drake when we come back on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Final segment of the week. It's time for San Diego FC talk and our Soccer 101 as we bring on our contributor to the show. He is a contributing writer for Black Players for Change. Drake Hills joins us for the first time in a couple of weeks since I've been gone in Italy. We got to get Drake back on as we'll talk a little bit of soccer. Drake, what's going on? How's your Friday?
Hey, man, I don't know what was in that vino in Italy, but I just got a promotion, and if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
That's pretty cool. Contributor.
That's right. You're here every Friday, are you not?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But it's definitely 2 weeks. I think it's gone by pretty quickly. I mean, we had an international break on the women's side. Obviously, some U.S. men's national team and U.S. women's national team, and now we're getting into Gold Cup all of a sudden next week.
Let's talk about the U.S. national team a little bit. I mean, they played Switzerland earlier in the week, lost 4-0, didn't have all of their guys, but it was the future of United States soccer. I'm sure we can spend, or you can spend, hours talking about the problems of the U.S. men's national team. What is your takeaway over the 4-0 loss to the Swiss in a friendly as they start to try to gear up to, get ready for the World Cup that's going to be hosted in the United States?
I would say in one word, Braden, it's listless. There was, and Mauricio Pochettino, who's the coach, obviously the most decorated United States men's national team coach in U.S. soccer history, if you go by his club resume. Obviously someone who has managed some of the top players in the English Premier League and Ligue 1 with Paris Saint-Germain. This guy comes in after the dismissal of Greg Berhalter. Obviously the U.S. men's national team has not had a high yet. Everything has been lows. And if you take a look at this roster, as you mentioned, Braden, you're missing the Weston McKennie. You're missing the Christian Pulisic. You're missing the Tim Weah, right? These are not only top players and star players, but they are your attackers as well. If we're thinking about it, Paxton Aronson, Patrick Anjuman, Damian Downs, Brian White, Haji Wright. I mean, Haji is obviously a 2022 World Cup alum, but we have a lot of guys who are hungry to argue and compete for spots. But again, going back to the listless title here, we didn't see in the two friendlies, Turkey, I should say, and Switzerland, we didn't see the hunger and the drive collectively to actually compete against those teams. And especially that we've crossed the 365 1 year to go calendar as we approach the World Cup. We don't know half the starters that could be in the lineup for that first game.
We talked about it a lot. I mean, the youth movement in soccer in the United States has gotten a lot better. I mean, a lot of MLS teams are building academies, and you're seeing it throughout the United States. I mean, it's not, really a lack of athletes. I mean, obviously a lot of the athletes in the United States do play other sports as well. But, what for you has been the biggest problem that you've noticed when it comes to Team USA in men's soccer compared to the rest of the world?
Well, I think it's direction. And obviously, Major League Soccer has been growing exponentially. And not only just with teams, but also the quality of these teams. Obviously, we see the likes of Los Angeles FC, or LAFC as we call them, being able to compete against Club America to bump out Club America and get a spot in the Club World Cup. Obviously, the likes of Seattle Sounders has won the Continental Tournament, right? What we call the Champions Cup in CONCACAF, which oversees all of North America and Central America. So the league here is on the up and up, but we have our best players still going abroad, and we have our best players still trying to make their way into becoming stars in their own right. I mean, I think on top of that, and I think the biggest thing here is the direction. We don't know which direction this United States men's national team wants to go in terms of developing a clear identity, how they want to play, who are the players that are going to be in every camp that are going to uphold that standard of play style, but also the level in which that style is being performed. And not only that, but when it comes to the biggest games, Braden, we don't see the top players playing at their best, right? I mean, 2022 it feels like forever ago, and it kind of was, even though it feels like it was just yesterday, but it was a long time ago, especially in a soccer career. But that team was outcoached against the Netherlands. But you did see the likes of, let's say, a Tyler Adams showing that he can be a captain for this United States men's national team. And you've seen a couple of players from that team, Chris Richards, who wasn't on that World Cup team, but essentially as a center back has really grown into his own, playing in the English Premier League. Anthony Robinson as well, playing for Fulham, an incredible period of growth. But again, Tim Weah, Christian Pulisic, Weston McKennie, they're not in the camp right now for either because of club reasons or in Christian's position, he decided to take himself out of camp due to playing 150, 160 games in the last 2 years. So it comes down to direction.
Drake Hill is contributing writer for Black Players for Change, joining us on the Braden Surprenant Show, getting us our Soccer 101. We do each and every Friday. Before we talk about San Diego FC, I know it was a couple weeks ago, but while I was in Italy, in an area that had a lot of Inter Milan fans, the Champions League championship was going on. Inter Milan came up short by a lot to Paris St. George. What was your overall takeaway of the Champions League final?
Yeah, that was probably, I think, the second most boring, if not the most boring final, just because of the lack of competition. Really wasn't a game after the first 10 minutes. I think back to when Real Madrid beat Juventus handily. Kind of feels like over a decade ago. I think it was. Obviously, Cristiano Ronaldo, Karim Benzema, some of the likes where they just Juventus didn't really seem to have a chance. So, but it's kind of, we're in a weird spot. It's the summer of soccer, Braden. We've got the Euros, the European Championships on the women's side. You've got the Gold Cup, which is obviously the Continental Cup on the men's side. We've got World Cup qualifiers taking place across the world. You have a lot of soccer, not to mention Leagues Cup, which we'll get a chance to see in a couple of months.
And on all of that, as we get to the international portion of the soccer calendar, in which MLS does not take off, you will have players for San Diego FC that are now playing for their countries, particularly. One of them was Anders Dreyer, who did have a goal and assist for Denmark on Tuesday. What does that make of San Diego FC now that most of the international players that have decided to play internationally have left? How do you piece together your roster in the MLS right now if you're San Diego FC, and what do you see out of them?
That's all about depth, and that's the hardest thing, one of the hardest things to do in MLS because of the salary cap, right? The salary budget charge that we talked about a month ago, it's really tough, because especially for an expansion team, you're not fully in form, right? You're still building this team from scratch, even during that first expansion season. And I think that with Anders Dreyer, I think, in my opinion, has been the best and most consistent player, top of the top, offensively, creatively, for the San Diego FC team. But I really like Tomas Angel. We saw against the Club America in that friendly last Friday, or Saturday, I should say. Incredible set-piece goal. I think he's really coming into his own. Obviously, his father knows a little bit about that, who played in MLS, played for New York Red Bulls, River Plate in Argentina, who also knows a lot about a goal. So I think that this team gives a chance for someone like Tomas to step up. You mentioned some players stepping away. Anibal Godoy for Panama in the Gold Cup, as well as Luca De La Torre, the San Diego native. Speaking of another San Diego native, Milan Olaski, from San Pasqual High School. He's been stepping up, scoring goals. He scored in that game against Club America. So I think that during this time, you're going to see guys like Tomas and Milan really step up and show you what they can do.
How much can you take away from San Diego FC knocking off Club America, even though it probably wasn't their number one squad and both teams missing guys?
I would say it's very much off the field. And I'm thinking about the fact that showing San Diego the fact that soccer does matter here. It is important. It is a big deal, and it brings communities together. And obviously, the U.S.-Mexico soccer connection, San Diego and Mexico specifically, is officially ignited. But as far as the game itself, it was clear that Club America, someone who is clearly involved in multiple titles. Obviously, they didn't really play all of their best players. But then again, neither did San Diego FC. They had a couple of players out because of the previous tournaments we just spoke about. So I would love to see that type of game again with the trophy on the line. And that's where Leagues Cup comes into play.
Game tomorrow for San Diego FC. Both teams obviously missing some players, but that's what you're going to get in the MLS at this point in the year. San Diego FC will play Minnesota United. It's the first of a 3-match road trip for San Diego FC after having most of the home games for the month of May. Minnesota United and San Diego FC are tied for second in the West with 30 points. Minnesota 3-2-0 in their last 5, including a draw against MLS best Vancouver. Give us a quick preview of the upcoming match tomorrow for San Diego FC.
Yeah, speaking of players missing, Minnesota is going to be tied for second most players being unavailable because of this Gold Cup. They've got 4. 2 of them, in my opinion, are best 11. So, you can call them kind of like in baseball, it's like Golden Gloves or All-NBA or NFL All-Pro, that type of level. Tani Oloshewi is, he's in that category of 8 goals. And I think 6 or 7 players that have scored 8 goals this season. He's also got 5 assists, which is incredible. Dane St. Clair, who's obviously a standout goalkeeper for the Canadian men's national team. He will be gone. Joseph Rosales, Carlos Harvey. Carlos will be joining Anibal on that Panama men's national team in the Gold Cup. So something to look out for is how does this San Diego FC team put Minnesota on the pressure, even on the road? I mean, how can San Diego FC really create and put Minnesota in a position where they're having to defend in their own third? So it will be interesting to see how Mikey Varas, the coach for San Diego FC, puts out a team that can do that.
Drake, we appreciate the time as always. Thanks again for joining us. Look forward to talking to you again next week. Get a lot of great summer soccer action to break down on our Soccer 101.
I appreciate it, and welcome back. It was a great week for you.
Yes, it's good to be back. Appreciate it, Drake. Thanks again. Drake Hills, Black Players for Change contributing writer, helps contribute to our show each and every Friday to give us the soccer lowdown. We always appreciate that, and that is how we usually wrap up our Fridays here on the Braden Surprenant Show. Big game for San Diego FC tomorrow, always a big game. San Diego Padres have a 3-game series against the Arizona Diamondbacks this weekend as well. You got college baseball in full force of the College World Series. Coastal Carolina is now taking a 5-4 lead in the bottom of the 8th inning and trying to threaten some more here in the first game of the College World Series. Oregon State and Louisville will be underway at the conclusion of this game. U.S. Open's going on in golf this weekend as well. So got a lot going on in the sports world, and we'll have a lot to break down next week. Next Monday is my last day out. I am helping out the Don's Alumni Golf Tournament for my high school, so I'll be gone on Monday, but I'll be back Tuesday for the week. We will not have a show on Thursday. Nobody will have shows here on the Fan on Thursday, as it is Juneteenth, so we're all off for that day. And then after that, after next week, we're basically back to full go shows throughout the whole week. We will be off on the 4th of July, obviously. We will be here on the 3rd of July. And then I don't know what's going on that week because I think there's a couple of day games mixed into. So summer months leading up, it's interesting. We're all over the place when it comes to our schedule. But Frank will be here Monday with Scraby. I'll be back on Tuesday, and we're going to be talking about the Padres and Dodgers when we come back on Tuesday. Hopefully the Padres take 2 out of 3 from Arizona. Take 2 out of 3 from Arizona, and then split with LA in 4 games in Los Angeles, and you've basically weathered the storm of the first of 2 major important stretches for the Padres in 2025. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. We'll talk to you guys on Tuesday. Coming up next, Tony Gwynn Jr., Chris Ello, and Matt Scraby for Gwynn and Chris. Hope you guys all have a great weekend. Enjoy the sports, and we look forward to talking to you next week on the Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97 through the Fan.